The main character was sitting in class and playing a game on his phone. A girl approached the guy, who called the main character by the name of Himuro, and asked what he was doing. The girl clarified that he was playing the Card Master fantasy game. Himuro replied that it was a competitive online card game. There you have to fight by combining different cards, such as summoning cards and item cards. The guy clarified that, however, there is a bit of luck there, because every time he takes out a random card from his deck. The most important thing is the correct assessment of the situation. In this game, you need to be able to predict the opponent's moves based on the cards that have already been played, and use your cards in the best situation. The girl pointed at the player and asked that this Kanata, who is in first place in the ranking, is who he is. Himuro replied that yes, it is. The guy said that he's still there, but all the players want to get the highest rank, since they can get money for it. Himuro admitted that he enjoys coming up with tactics against strong opponents. It was an interesting game for him. Himuro asked the girl what she wanted from him. The guy immediately noticed that she waited until everyone left, and then she approached the main character. This confused the girl very much. The girl tuned in and started telling Himuro what she wanted from him. But the girl did not have time to finish, and Himuro said that she should not play games with punishment. The girl was very surprised that the guy found out about it from somewhere. The fact that the guy quickly realized what the point was made the girl very confused. Himuro said that he saw her, during her lunch break, playing the fool with Takahashi and other guys. Then the guy noticed out of the corner of his eye that she was losing all the time, so he told her not to play punishment games. The guy added that he did not hear what kind of punishment it was. However, they both know how cruel Takahashi can be. Himuro asked the girl that Takahashi had told her to confess her love to a random person. The girl replied that everything was clear to her. She realized that Himuro knew everything from the very beginning. However, in fact, the punishment in the game for the girl was not a declaration of love to a random person. Himuro asked the girl what it was like then. The girl started to tell how it really was, but she didn't have time to tell because everything started to rumble around. The girl assumed it was an earthquake, but Himuro replied that no, it was something else. Suddenly, everything began to change. It was as if the world began to change and turn into something incomprehensible. The guy wanted to tell the girl that they need to run away from there, but he heard her loud scream. Himuro turned around and saw that the girl was in trouble. She began to fall out of this world. Himuro started calling her by the name Nanahara and holding out his hand to her. The girl also tried to reach out to the guy, calling him by his last name, Oboashao, Kanata. But the guys did not have time to grab each other's hands. Himuro was very scared for the girl, and he tried to save her to the last. At some point, Himuro opened his eyes and realized that something strange had happened. The guy found himself in a large cave all alone. Himuro was very surprised and said that he should be in class. The guy heard strange noises coming from behind him. Himuro turned around and asked what it was. He had just heard a sound. The guy was very curious if anyone was there. Himuro realized that someone was approaching him. A big monster came out of the shadow of the terrible tunnel. He immediately attacked the guy, who was standing in a stupor and did not understand what to do. The monster managed to deliver a strong blow to Himuro, which caused the guy to fall to the ground. Himuro looked at the monster and wondered what it was. He looks like a fantasy monster. As soon as Himuro tried to get to his feet, the monster struck again, but did not hit the guy. Himuro tried to shout at the monster, and he asked him to wait and listen. Despite the guy's screams, the monster didn't even pay attention to him. The next moment, he shouted something in his own language and swung again and struck at Himuro. But he managed to dodge. Himuro thought that he did not understand the language of this creature at all. Anyway, he needs to get out of there as soon as possible. The guy took a step back and tripped over a stone. Because of this, he fell to the ground again. The guy looked up and saw that a monster was swinging at him. At that moment, a girl appeared out of nowhere and said something in the language of this world. This immediately attracted the monster's attention, so he stopped. The monster and Himuro turned their attention to the girl and saw that she was floating in the air right above them. Himuro was very surprised by her sudden appearance, and the guy couldn't figure out where she came from. The girl came down to the ground and she looked at the guy. She was approached by a monster who told her something in their language. For a while, the girl and the monster communicated with each other, but Himuro did not understand at all what they were discussing. Suddenly, Himuro heard that the girl asked how the man got there. The guy thought that for another minute, he didn't understand a single word they were saying, but now he's starting to understand what they're talking about. The girl turned to Himuro and asked him how he got there. The guy honestly replied that he did not know this, because when he woke up, he was already there. The girl asked the guy again that he didn't know how he got there. She asked the guy what his name was. Himuro introduced himself. The girl sat down and said that he had a strange name and unusual clothes. The girl asked what Himuro could be from another world. The guy thought about her words, because he assumed that such a thing was really possible. The girl said that sometimes it happens that creatures who come from other worlds do not know anything about this world. He looks like one of those. The girl added that if he was from another world, he would not be able to survive there on his own, so she decided to report him to Lord Zard. The girl said that this is her lord and the master of 1,000,000 monsters. This is Lord Zardu. Now the girl decided to take Himuro to him. The girl explained that Lord Zardu would decide what to do with him. If he's any good, he won't kill him. But if Himuro turns out to be useless, then he should be ready for it. The guy was very scared of this scenario. The girl added that if Himuro did not want to go with him, then of course he could refuse and try to escape. Suddenly Himuro saw a lot of monsters, and the girl asked the guy what he would do in this case. Himuro realized that it was better for him to go with them. His hands were bandaged, and they all went to the Lord together. The guys went even deeper into the cave, and they stopped near a large door. The girl turned to Mr. Zard and said that she had brought a man from another world with her. The guy was kneeling near the high staircase on which the Lord was sitting. Zardu looked at the guy carefully, and Himuro himself thought that this was the demon Zardu. The Lord turned to the girl and asked that it was an alien. Lord Zardu turned to Tross and asked what he would say to that. Tross looked at Himuro through his balloon and said that he was just trash. His mental abilities are normal, but physically he is extremely weak. His magic power is at 0. In short, he's useless. Zardu said that he doesn't even have magic power. He had heard that some otherworlders possessed powerful items. This guy doesn't have anything like that, so Lord wondered for a second what they should do with him. After a second, he gave out his decision that Himuro should be killed. Zardu said that although it was useless, it could be used as food. There are many who prefer human flesh, so he decided to give it to them. Himuro plucked up the courage and asked the Lord what they were going to eat him. Zardu replied that yes, it is. He asked the guy what was wrong with him. Although he is an alien, he is also a human being. People also eat cows, pigs, and the rest. Zardu said that he does not see people in anything, because they eat these animals because they are weak. The same applies to them. Zardu warned the guy that he would be eaten because he was weak. Everything was simple. That's how their world works. But Lord admitted that Himuro was lucky. Zardu said that their meal was over for today, so Himuro would stay alive until tomorrow. After that, the guy was locked in a cage and locked it. Himuro was left completely alone, and he assumed that this was his transfer to another world. The guy was sure that he was in class, and suddenly the ground began to shake under his feet. Suddenly, he remembered that Nanahara was also with him. The guy wondered what had happened to her. Himuro thought that if she had also entered this world, then she might have been attacked by monsters. Himuro decided that he had to get out of there and find her as soon as possible. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced the guy's entire body, and he shrank violently. Himuro realized that he was in no position to look for her right now. The guy remembered that he would be killed tomorrow evening. But there is a possibility that this will happen even earlier. Himuro must get out of this prison as soon as possible. The guy was wondering what he should do, and what he could do at all. Himuro said that if it was a game world or something like that, then maybe he could figure it out. The guy held out his hand and said that he would choose a card from the list. At that moment, a map appeared right in front of his eyes. This surprised Himuro very much. The guy looked around and saw that there were a lot of cards in front of him. Himuro asked what it was and why it was happening. He looked at the card carefully and realized that it was the Master Fantasy card. Himuro took one of the cards in his hand and asked that it wasn't his hallucination. It was written on the card that she would be able to restore it. The guy decided to immediately apply it to his body. Himuro touched his hand, on which he had a large wound, and said that this simply could not be. The guy was very surprised that he was able to heal with the help of recovery magic. Himuro asked that he could use the effects of these cards for his own purposes. The guy thought that Zardu had told him that some other worlders had powerful items. Himuro realized that these were the cards. Suddenly, he saw that there was a cross on the map he had used before. The guy remembered that he hadn't been there before. It was written on the card that he had to wait 3 days before being reused. Himuro realized that all these cards have a reuse period. This means that if he uses the card, he cannot use it again before the expiration of this period. Himuro reflected that even if there is a limit on the time of reuse, he can still freely use any card. This means that Himuro has a chance to survive. The guy realized that all these 300 cards would be his lifeline from the demon dungeon. Himuro was wondering if the properties of the cards were the same as in the game. The guy said there are 3 types of cards: summoning cards, item cards, and spell cards. Each type has 100 pieces. Himuro suggested that the time to reuse the map depends on the number of stars on the map. To begin with, the guy decided that he needed to get out of this cell. There were a lot of monsters outside this prison. Then Himuro realized that he would need an item card, some kind of weapon, but the guy said no. He doesn't know if he can stand up to so many monsters with just a weapon. Himuro suggested that he should use the summoning card to increase his combat power. In this case, the guy decided to use one of the cards. Everything immediately began to change. A second later, a girl suddenly appeared, floating in the sky. Himuro noticed that she had different eyes. The guy thought it was a maid with black hair and red-black eyes, and he really managed to summon her. The girl bowed down in front of the guy and said that her name was Mia. She was a loyal combat maid. The girl has a knife of the attribute of darkness and can also use fire-type magic. Its validity period is 2 days, and the time before reuse is 10 days. Mia told Himuro that she had come on his call. The guy got a warning that he should be careful with the battle maids of the Aqua Kingdom. Not only are they beautiful, they are also warriors who can use magic and weapons. Himuro asked the girl in surprise that she knew his name. Mia replied that yes, of course he was her master. The guy thought that he would be able to communicate with the summoned creatures. Then he can get some information from her. Himuro asked Mia if the girl understood that she was a card. Mia replied that yes, she was aware of that. Then the guy had another question. He asked if Mia knew who Zardu was. It seems to him that the Lord is also called the devil in his place. Mia thought about it and replied that no, she didn't know him. Himuro also thought about the fact that Mia doesn't know Zarda. This means that this world has nothing to do with the game. In that case, Himuro turned to Mia and said that the world he had summoned her to was very dangerous. Therefore, perhaps she can die there. Mia replied emphatically that no, she would not die. Himuro asked the girl why she was so sure of this. Mia replied that she was a card. If she is fatally wounded, she will simply become a card again. The same applies to all other summoning cards. Himuro thought that summoned creatures don't die. Then he can significantly expand the set of strategies and tactical moves. At that moment, the guys heard a monster approach the guy's camera and call out to them. The guy saw a monster who asked Mia what she was doing there and where she came from. Himuro thought that this was him, the first monster that attacked him. The guy looked at Mia and thought that she was a pretty easy to use and strong card in the game. But he didn't understand if she could defeat the monster of this world. The monster called out to the girl and asked her not to ignore him. He asked Mia what she wanted to be eaten with this garbage. These words made the guy very angry. Mia asked the monster what he called Himuro trash. She didn't understand who the trash was, so she asked the monster about it. The monster replied that it was the man next to her. He's just a piece of trash with no magic. At best, he's just food. Mia couldn't listen to this, so she demanded that the monster shut up. The monster wanted to protest, but Mia again asked him to shut up. The girl asked that he was completely deaf, since he couldn't hear what she was saying. These words angered the monster, so he grabbed the bars of the camera and easily pushed them apart. The monster told Mia that this garbage is their dinner tomorrow, but it looks like they'll have to kill it right now. Mia was angered by this, so she immediately grabbed her weapon. The girl said that the monster insulted her master 3 times. Himuro couldn't believe that Mia could behave like this. She wasn't afraid of danger at all. The monster realized that they were going to fight now, so he also grabbed his weapon. The monster pointed the weapon at the girl and he started calling her names. He asked Mia what she could do against such a sword. Mia, without hesitation, swung at the monster with a weapon and cut off his arm. Himuro stood in a stupor and watched this battle. The monster started screaming in pain, and Mia said that she thought he was strong, but he had a bad reaction and speed. The girl asked the monster that this was all he could do. The monster grabbed the weapon with his other hand and swung it at the girl again. In response, Mia struck the monster's chest with 2 blows that formed a cross. These were fatal blows for the monster, so it collapsed to the ground. Himuro looked at the monster in surprise and he realized that Mia had managed to kill him. The girl turned to Himuro and asked that the enemies were finished now. The guy replied that no, there are still a lot of monsters there. The guy said that there are still a lot of enemies. He needs to get out of this place somehow, and for that, he needs Mia's power. Himuro added that for now they should just leave there, because now other monsters may gather there. Mia replied that she can handle any number of monsters. Himuro asked the girl not to be overconfident. Most likely there are enemies much stronger than this monster. Mia replied that then she would do her best to protect her master. The guys came to the turn, and they carefully looked out from behind it. Himuro turned to the girl and said that a human voice was coming from the camera behind. The guy assumed that there were more people there. Suddenly Himuro remembered Nanahara, and the guy thought that maybe it was she who was sitting in the cage. The guy looked into it, but there he saw another girl. They looked at each other for a while to see if they could be dangerous to each other. The girl asked Himuro with relief that he was human. The guy carefully examined the girl behind the cage and saw that she had white skin with pointed ears. Himuro assumed that she was an elf. The girl asked the guy that he was caught too. She was wondering how he managed to get out of his cage. But still, the girl decided that it didn't matter to her now. The girl asked Himuro if he could get her out of this cage. Mia told the guy that she didn't feel any hostility. She doesn't think they'll get hurt if they let her out. But Mia cared what her master decided. Himuro thought that there was a knight in armor in the cage. A knight may have some power potential, but whoever it was, if she can increase their strength even a little, then they would be better off. Himuro turned to Mia and asked her to help him get the girl out of the cage. The guys managed to cut the bars of the cage and free the prisoner. When the girl was free, she told Himuro and Mia that they had helped her a lot. The girl was grateful for their help. The girl said her name was Tinar. She is the commander of the Order of the White Dragon of their Yon country. Tinar said she had never heard of people being drafted. She was wondering which country Himuro the summoner was from. The guy replied that he was from Japan. Tinar asked the guy where this place was. The girl assumed that it was a country on another continent. Himuro was surprised that there are several continents in this world. The guy replied that no. He had recently entered this world. The monsters called Otherworldly. Tiana replied that she had heard that there were people from other worlds, but she never thought that she would meet such a person. The girl said that she had a lot of questions for Himuro, but they didn't have time for that right now. Himuro asked Tianar that she was going to get out of there. He invited the girl to do it together. Tianar agreed with the guy. The girl asked Himuro to wait for her there for a while, and she would try to find some kind of weapon. Himuro replied to the girl that he already had a weapon. Tianar told the guy that he was unarmed. Himuro held out his hands in front of him and demanded that all the cards be released. Tianar asked Himuro what he was doing. The guy was very surprised and thought that Tianar could not see the map. Do people in this world not see the map? Himuro remembered about Mia, because she had seen all the cards. The guy told Tianar that he was now materializing a weapon, so he asked the girl to move away from him. This surprised Tianar very much, and she asked the guy what he was carrying. Himuro thought that even though she was the commander of the order, they still didn't know how strong she was. The guy suggested that it would be better for him to summon a weapon with a longer incarnation time. Himuro called up the item card, Zhao, Chuspi, the Wind Sword. This is a sword with the attribute of wind, which increases the attack power of the owner. Its duration is 2 days, and the recharge time is 10 days. When Tianar saw that the guy had a weapon in his hands, she asked how this was possible. Himuro asked the girl to take a ready-made weapon. The girl took it and said that it was very light, but it seemed durable to her. Tianar asked the guy how he could not only summon a human, but also create a weapon. The girl did not understand who he was. Himuro replied that he was just a foreigner. Meanwhile, the guys set off on their way. Tianar told the children that the Zardu maze has several levels leading deep underground. Judging by the girl's feelings, when she was led to this place, it was the deepest level. Tianar understood that the only way to survive was to climb up the levels. If they can get to the ground, then they will be safe. Himuro asked Tianar why she was being held there. The girl said that they had received reports of a cluster of monsters in the forests of Gallia, so they went to investigate and were captured. If there were only ordinary monsters, then Tianar would definitely have coped. But there was also the commander of the Zardu army. The girl told Himuro that if he was only recently in this world, then he probably doesn't know who Zardu is. Himuro replied that no, he had already met with him. This surprised Tianar, and she asked that he had already met him. The girl was surprised that he was okay. Zardu is the devil who wants to rule this world. In the past, many people have been victims of it. Suddenly, several monsters appeared behind the guys, who called out to them and asked what they were doing there. The guy started to panic because they were found. Himuro asked Tienar if they would run away. The girl replied that no, they should not allow information about their escape to spread. Fortunately, there weren't many monsters there, so Tienar was confident that they would deal with him quickly. Tienar didn't wait long, so she attacked the monsters. The girl started hitting them, and it really surprised one of the monsters. Tienar was able to hit the monster on the chest and on the arms. After that, she destroyed the next monster. The girl was able to get behind the monster and strike at its back. At that moment, Himuro was watching the girl and thought that she was very strong. The guy realized that this is the power of the knights of this world. Himuro told Tienar that this was what he expected from the commander of the order. The girl agreed with the guy and replied that thanks to this sword, she felt very confident. The girl even wanted to say that half of the success belongs to him, this sword as the finishing touch. This sword is very light, but it cuts monsters like butter. She had never heard of such a sword. The girl turned to Himuro and said that if they returned from this place, she would like to buy this sword. She promised to give 60 gold coins for it. Himuro replied that unfortunately, this sword would only last for 2 days. After that time, it would disappear. This surprised the girl very much, and she asked that she had only 2 days. This upset Tienar very much. At that moment, another monster appeared above the guys and watched them. He turned to them and asked what was going on there. The guys immediately turned around and looked up in fright. The monster told the guys that they seemed to be doing something interesting there, and he had some free time. So he asked the guys to entertain them. Tienar recognized this monster immediately. They exchanged glances with each other, and the monster realized who Tienar was. The monster said that she was the same elf with whom he had been having fun a couple of days ago in the forest. The guy admitted that these were very funny days. Himuro told Tienar that he thought they knew each other. Tienar replied that he was one of the senior officers leading a detachment from the Zardu army. The monster jumped down from the top stone to the guys on the ground. The monster said he was the corps commander, and his name was Darg. Himuro was very curious about the strength of the leader of the evil army, but no matter what, he decided to play with it. Tienar swung her sword at Darg, but the monster managed to expose its weapon and defend itself. Darg told the girl that you can't win with one punch because it's too boring. Darg pushed Tienar back with a sharp movement of his hand to the side. At that moment, he noticed that a new opponent appeared behind him who swung his weapon at him. Mia hit the guy with all her might, but Darg managed to jump back and not get injured. In response, he swung at the girl and hit the ground with all his might. Mia managed to jump back so he didn't hit her. Himuro watched the guys and was very surprised by the power of the Darg. His strength was not comparable to the monsters they had met before. The guy remembered that when attacking with a long-handled weapon, there is always a gap. Through the smoke, the guys noticed weapons sticking out of the ground. A moment later, Darg's strong hand shot towards Mia. He hit the girl with a powerful blow, but Mia managed to sit down and protect herself. Darg asked Mia to entertain him as soon as possible. Tienar joined the battle again, who swung at him, but the monster managed to dodge. The girl struck again, but she failed to hit the Darg. The monster asked Tienar what had happened to her, because she had become much stronger. Darg assumed that she had not fought at full strength before. In response, the girl struck at him again. Darg managed to jump aside, but now 2 girls rushed at him at once. The monster tried to hit both Mia and Tienar with one blow. Darg asked his rivals what happened to them. They will never be able to defeat him that way. Tienar began to get angry that she couldn't destroy this monster. Darg asked the girls to try harder. He really wanted them to start entertaining him. Tienar and Mia couldn't listen to Darg, so they immediately rushed towards him. But the monster managed to dodge their blows. Himuro was watching them at that moment and thought that Darg was shading them all the time. He's probably still not fighting at full strength. He's a cut above all the monsters they've met before. The guy couldn't figure out how many others like him there were at this level. Himuro was sure that they could not delay with him. They needed to defeat the monster while he was still not serious. Powerful spell cards with a large damage radius can hit these two, and there is a time delay between summoning powerful creatures and attacking them. Fortunately for the guys, their enemy is not too careful yet. Then all Himuro needs to do now is issue maps. Himuro wanted to create an opportunity for these two to hit him. The guy took out a spell card Dubicon arrows of 6 elements. He immediately directed those arrows towards Darg. The monster heard something flying at him, and he tried to fight them off. Darg felt one of the arrows hit him right in the leg. At that moment, stones began to appear from the arrow, which squeezed the monster's leg. Himuro and the girls realized that this was their chance. Mia decided to act first. She approached the monster from behind and swung. Darg heard it in time, so he put out his hand to deflect the girl's blow. But Mia was able to hit the weapon right on his arm. This allowed the girl to chop off the monster's arm. Next came Tianar, who was already running towards the monster. The stone that grew out of Himuro's arrow prevented Darg from taking a single step. He tried to strike at Tianar, but he failed. In the next instant, the girl was able to hit Darg's body with her sword, which caused blood to spray from him. Tianar tried to catch her breath, and the guys realized that they had succeeded in defeating Darg. But despite his injuries, the monster was still alive, and he laughed at the guys. Darg said he already thought Himuro couldn't fight, so he stood aside. But he turns out to have some interesting tricks up his sleeve. Darg asked the guys that they were going to escape from there. They amused him well, and for this, he decided to tell them something. Darg said that at the end of the road, they would find an iron door. Behind it, there was a staircase leading up. They can use this staircase to go outside. Darg warned the guys that the barrier of Lord Zardu would be waiting for them along this road. It is a powerful barrier that no one has ever managed to overcome. The monster said that the only way for the guys to survive is to go through the barrier. It might all be in vain, but at least they can try. A second later, Darg died. Tianar was slightly upset, and the girl told Himuro that if what Darg had told them was true, then they would definitely not be able to escape. They are at an impasse. Himuro thought about it and replied that no, they have some way. The guy said that this barrier was created by Zardu. Then the only way they have left is to kill the Lord himself. Tianar was shocked by this. She asked Himuro not to talk nonsense. It's impossible. Himuro replied that it was the only way out of this place. Tianar assured the guy that they didn't know how strong Zardu was. No army has been able to defeat this monster yet. Himuro replied that they knew Darg's power, and there were still plenty of monsters like him around Zargu. It will not be possible to defeat him in his current state. Tianar was confused by the words about their current condition, and she asked the guy what he meant. The guy said that in order to defeat Zarda, they will create their own army. After a while, Himuro created their own army. This army immediately went in search of monsters. The skeletons met a couple of monsters who, in disbelief, asked who they were and where they came from. But the skeletons did not stop, but went straight at the monsters. There are even more of them. After a moment, the guy's army was able to destroy the monsters. At that moment, the guys were behind the wall, and when everything became safe, they realized that their path was free, so they could go. The guys immediately ran down the long corridor. At some point, Himuro stopped and decided to see how many creatures he could summon. The guy said that he can only use 2 creature cards at the same time, so everything was exactly the same as in the game. Tianar didn't understand what the guy was talking about. Himuro thought that he could use the cards just like in the game. These cards have a rollback time. There are a lot of soldiers around Zardu, so first of all, Himuro needs to deal with them. For this, the guy needs his own army. With the help of the card of the undead Lord Hades, Himuro will be able to create his own army. It was written on the map that all those killed by Hades become skeletons. Hades once destroyed the city of Aru in one night. From now on, it was the city of the dead. Himuro then decided to use a map that strengthens his army. This is the skull of the first overlord. With these 2 cards, the guys will be able to resist the army of Zardu. Meanwhile, Zardu sat on his throne and asked Tross how their plan was progressing. Tross replied that everything was going fine. Everything is ready for the invasion of the Yoma kingdom. Tross said that Mr. Gerg with an army of 100,000 was already waiting at the border. As soon as Zardu orders, they can launch an invasion. Zardu replied that after the destruction of the kingdom of Yom, they would have no problems with the kingdoms of Sadal, Nimros, and Ilune. Very soon, the entire continent of Aegeus will be his. Murica asked the Lord if he was going to destroy all people. Zardu replied that, of course not. He doesn't need to destroy such a supply of food, but they don't need these kingdoms, so they will live in their dungeons. The girl was glad of this answer. Suddenly, they heard a strange noise. Zardu asked the girl what the noise was outside. A monster immediately ran up to Zard and told the gentleman that they were attacked by a huge army of skeletons. He reported that the battle with them is taking place all over the dungeon. Zardu and the girl tensed. The girl asked the monster what happened to Mr. Zardu's barrier and where these skeletons came from. The monster replied that he didn't know anything about it. He was sure that they would not be able to hold him back for long, and besides, the soldiers they defeated also become skeletons. The monster said that the army of skeletons is constantly growing. It's only a matter of time before they take over the entire dungeon. Suddenly, the monster began to speak in a completely different voice. Zardu tensed up and asked the monster who he was. The monster smiled at the Lord and began to take off his disguise. A skeleton from Himuro's army began to crawl out of the monster's body. He completely stuck in front of Zardu and said that his name was Hades, and he was the Lord of the Undead. Hades told Zard that he would take his life. The girl was surprised and asked that some pathetic lich wanted to kill the great demon lord. Hades replied that Zardu was alone there and they had many soldiers. The girl asked if Hades really thought he could defeat Mr. Zarda and his army alone. Hades replied that they had amazing self-confidence. However, he also has an army, a countless army created from the corpses of monsters. All the skeletons that are part of the Hades army have started to appear behind the undead lord. Hades said they were starting a war. Skeletons and monsters immediately collided in a fierce battle. The skeletons were strong enough to deal serious blows to the monsters. Murica couldn't believe it. Morika said that skeletons are the weakest undead. She didn't understand how they had so much power. Suddenly, Hades gave a sign, and all the skeletons immediately looked towards Zardu. All the skeletons rushed up the stairs to get to the Lord, who was already preparing to attack. Zardu made a powerful strike that was able to exterminate some skeletons. Puzzled, Zardu asked the undead lord what was the matter. After all, skeletons alone cannot defeat him. Hades replied that in that case they should just keep attacking. To this, Zardu replied that they should stop joking about it. He once again made a powerful explosion that destroyed the skeletons. Hades used curse magic towards Zarda. He was able to apply the seal to his opponent's hands. Hades told the Lord that he had sealed his hands. Zardu replied to him that no matter what he used to destroy, he would still be unable to do anything. Hades noticed that in exchange for his hand, he sealed his hand. It was interesting for Hades. Zardu replied that everything his opponent did was useless. This made Hades tense up. The next moment, there was a massive explosion near Hades. The skeleton began to be destroyed. Zardu used his magic to grab the skeleton by the throat and lift it up. Zardu said that he had not used these hands for a long time. Hades had amused him very well, but it was the end for him. A second later, the Hades skeleton broke into thousands of small pieces. The last thing Hades managed to say was to ask Himuro for forgiveness for not being able to help him. The guy replied to Hades in his thoughts that no, he did a very good job. The basis of the plan to defeat Zarda is a surprise attack. In order for the surprise attack to be successful, he gave Hades two orders. The first is to destroy the monsters in the dungeon. The second is to start a battle in the throne room to distract the attention of Zardu and his soldiers. After that, he has to start a battle with Zardu himself so that he can fully focus on the battle. While he was being distracted, Himuro was able to get closer. After that, Himuro decided that he needed to choose the next card. He chose the card of the pseudo-hero Metacell and asked her to defeat Zarda. It was a very rare card that sacrificed its power by increasing its attack power. Metacella is not a real hero. However, she was able to defeat the Dragon of Darkness and protected her city of Kyle from destruction. Metacella immediately swung at Zarda, who was standing with his back to her, but he sensed danger and turned back in time. After that, there was a powerful explosion right next to the Lord. Marika was very scared for Zarda. The girl saw that blood began to drip in the place where the Lord was standing. It was blood from Zardu's severed hand. The Lord looked at his hand and saw that the Metacella had started to get up from its place. He looked at her carefully and said that he understood everything. He decided that this girl was the same as Hades. Through the smoke, he saw Himuro's outline and said that he was the one behind it all. Zardu realized that it was the same alien. Himuro thought that they had failed to defeat Zarda with one blow. However, they were able to cut off his arm. The guy told Metacella that she didn't have to worry about him. He can defend himself. The guy asked Metacella to fight at full strength. He urged her to attack Zarda again. The girl replied that she accepted his command. She immediately rushed towards the Lord, and Zardu himself also prepared to attack. When the Metacella struck at the Lord, he was able to deflect it with his power. The girl jumped into the air, and from there she started aiming at the Lord. The girl fired several shots directly at Zarda. The Lord told the girl that she had unusual magic. Zardu gave the order with a gesture, and after that, sharp peaks began to appear from the ground. Metacella was able to protect herself with her power. After that, the Lord sent the whirlwind towards the girl again, and she was behind the Lord. When the girl swung to strike at Zard, he turned and saw her. Metacella sent magic towards the Lord, but he managed to put up a magic shield and defend himself. Moriko was shocked by what was happening in the battle. She didn't understand who Metacella was. After all, she can fight on a par with Mr. Zardu. The girl thought that this man must be using magic to summon creatures. She realized that if he was defeated, the Metacella would disappear. Therefore, the girl immediately headed towards the guy. Himuro noticed this, but Mia managed to stand in front of the guy and protect him from being hit by the monster girl. Mia told the girl that she would not be able to harm her master. In response to this, the monster girl sket. Tross turned to Mrs. Marika and asked her to move away from there, because he was going to destroy him with one spell. But at that moment, Tienar came to Himuro's aid, who hit the rope. The girl told the man that his opponent was her. Himuro thought that Zardu and Metacella were fighting one-on-one. So far, everything was going according to plan. The opponents turned against each other again. The girl was able to land several blows in the direction of the Lord. Zardu replied that she was moving well. When the girl's magic power approached the Lord, an explosion occurred. After that, the Metacella's magic power hit directly into the Lord's protective shield. He was very much surprised by the strength of the girl she owns. The Metacella was behind Zardu. Behind his back, she activated the maximum power fire mode. A moment later, she launched her power, and a huge column of fire headed towards the Lord. Marika and Tross watched the battle in amazement. After the attack on Zarda, Metacella headed for Tross. She was able to cut the monster's head in half with one swing of her sword. Tiana ran up to Himuro and asked him if Zarda was dead and if they had coped. Himuro replied that they should not jump to conclusions. The guy thought that Metacella had just used her most powerful attack. They just had to find out the result. Everyone looked with bated breath at whether Zardu was still alive. Suddenly, because of the smoke, the guys felt that nothing was over yet, and Zardu was alive. The Lord laughed a little and told the guys that it was very interesting. He admits that the meta model is very strong. Metacella didn't wait for Zardu to come out of the smoke, so she launched her magic at him again. But even through the thick smoke, the Lord was able to stop her blow by putting out his hand. Zardu told the girl that this was not enough for him. The Lord assured Metacella that she would not be able to defeat him. So that was the end. Zardu directed a powerful magical force towards the girl. This caused her arm to be severed. From such a strong blow, the girl fell to the ground. Zardu told Metacell that he wanted to completely destroy her, however. She was able to withstand such a strong blow. Zardu turned to the other guys and said that they were the only ones left. The Lord told the guys that he didn't know how Himuro was able to do this without even having a drop of magic. Zardu told the Otherworlder that he seemed to have the power of the Interrupter. The Lord asked the guy that that girl was his trump card. If that's not the case, then he should use it right now. Since Himuro didn't do anything, the Lord said that it seemed to him that the guy didn't have any other cards. Murik landed on the Lord, and she turned to Mr. Zard. Zardu immediately asked the monster girl how Tross was doing. Marika replied that he was defeated by that elf girl. Zardu replied that he was very sorry. They had done so many bad things in his dungeon. Therefore, as a reward, the Lord decided to deal with them personally. At that moment, the Metacella began to recover and rise from the ground. Zardu felt it immediately. Suddenly, the girl jumped off the spot and struck at the Lord, but he managed to put up a magic shield again. Zardu was very surprised that the girl was still alive. He said she was very resilient. However, Zardu was sure that they would not succeed. Tynyar told Metacella that she would not break through his defenses with such an attack. Metacella decided to remove the restrictions from the central generator and go beyond the limits. The Metacella dealt a very powerful blow to the Lord, which surprised him greatly. Everything started to crack, and Zardu started to step back. Murik was afraid for her commander and said that the Metacella was crowding the Lord. She didn't want to believe that Mr. Zardu was losing to her. Zardu put out all his arms in order to protect himself. Himuro noticed this and thought that the Lord was now focused on his defense, so now was the guy's chance. Himuro decided to choose a new card for himself, and it was a spell card. The guy used the Dark Moonchain card. She hides the opponent's movements and delivers a constant blow. The chains rushed into the Lord and wrapped around his arms. This surprised Zarda very much. The Lord realized that they were draining his magic power. Himuro noticed that the barrier had become weaker, so he gave the command to Metacell that she should now deliver a powerful blow. The girl obeyed the guy and directed all her magical power at the Lord. This allowed the barrier that Zardu had created to be destroyed. The Lord got angry and called Metacell a scoundrel. At that moment, Metacell said that the central generator was seriously damaged. It is impossible to continue the battle any further. The girl's self-destruct mode was automatically activated. The next moment, there was a massive explosion. All the guys were trying to stay on their feet from the strong blast wave. Despite everything, Zardu was still alive. He told the other guys that he had done it, so they should not expect mercy and a quick death from him. A magic circle appeared around Zardu, which greatly surprised the Lord. He was indignant and looked at his hands, which he could no longer move. Zardu did not understand what had happened to him. He asked Himuro that it was a high-level curse. But that wasn't the point. The Lord realized that it was all Himuro's doing too. The guy himself was standing at that moment, surrounded by his cards. Zardu told Himuro that he was a summoner. Summoners are not able to use high-level magic. The Lord couldn't figure out who Himuro really was. The guy replied that, as the Lord had said, he was a summoner. The guy told Zard that what he had applied to him was his strongest spell. It takes a lot of time to activate this spell, thanks to the Metacell. He had it. It was a rare card of the Endless Magic Circle. She deals incredibly huge magical damage. After using this spell, other cards cannot be used for 2 days. Himuro will inform the Lord that this is his real trump card. The guy asked Zarda to let him answer the question of who he really is. Himuro introduced himself and said that he was the one who defeated Zarda using the cards. After that, he activated the power of the card, and it destroyed Zarda. At the moment when the strongest explosion occurred, Zarda did not understand what had happened to him. The Lord simply couldn't believe that he had lost to a man without a drop of magic. Black sharp spikes began to appear from the Lord's entire body. They brought intense pain to Zard all over his body. He screamed in pain while everyone else watched him suffer. After that, an explosion occurred, which destroyed the Lord. When the blast wave passed by the guys, they tried to see what was left of the Zardu. A large crater had formed in the place where he was standing. Tianar sat down on the ground, and with a surprised expression on her face. She said that Zardu was dead. He was no more. She was very pleased that they had managed to cope with the Lord. Himuro looked at the place where Zardu was standing and realized that they had finished this battle. Tianar couldn't contain her joy, so she immediately ran to the guy, hugged him tightly, and said that they had done it. The girl screamed that it was just incredible. She praised Himuro and said he was just amazing. She called him the hero of the Yamu Kingdom. But the girl immediately corrected herself and said that he was the hero of this whole world. Himuro stood in a stupor, and he could only ask Tianar to let him go, because the guy was in pain. Himuro turned to Mia and asked her what happened to that monster girl on Zardu's side. Mia replied that she had looked at everything but could not find her. The girl assumed that she was also hit by the explosion. Himuro thought about the version that she was hurt by the explosion. But still the guy assumed that she could have escaped. The guy said that the skeletons that Hades had summoned didn't have much time left, so they have to hurry up and find a way out of this place. The guy also said that Dark had told them there was a way out, but it was not a fact that this way would be safe for them. Tianar replied that yes, it is. But even if there are obstacles, they can easily get around them. Himuro agreed with the girls and said that, however, they could not count on his strength yet. Tianar asked the guy what he meant. Himuro replied that these were the effects of a spell used earlier. He won't be able to use magic for 2 days. The skeletons that were alive continued to fight the remaining monsters. Tianar asked Himuro when they would return from where he wanted to go. Himuro replied that he hadn't really thought about it, so he didn't have any plans yet. Tianar asked the guy that in that case, why wouldn't he go with her to the royal capital of Vestria? Himuro thought that this was the capital of the Yomu Kingdom. The guy asked Tianar if he really could go there. The girl replied that yes, of course. She said that there are a lot of travelers and adventurers in the capital. And besides, there were descendants of the same otherworlders as Himuro. The guy thought that in that case really no one was following them. Himuro replied to the girl that it was good. He decided to ask if he could go with Tinar. The girl replied that she did not see any problems in this. At the same moment, the guys saw a light at the end of the tunnel. They realized that it was a long-awaited exit. When the guys went outside, Tinar realized that it was the Gallia forest. The girl asked Himuro to get away from the dungeon because it was still very dangerous there. The girl told the guys that it used to be a very rich forest and people lived there. However, with the arrival of Zardu, everyone left this place. Himuro asked Tinar how long it would take them to get to the capital. The girl replied that it would take about 7 days of travel. The girl said that it was safest to get out of this forest, although it will be a little far to the capital. But on the way, they will be able to take a horse in the village. First, they have to get out of this forest. Suddenly, Mia looked at her hand and realized that it was starting to disappear. The girl immediately turned to Himuro and said that she thought it was her limit. Himuro replied that he understood everything. Her draft time was coming to an end. The guy thanked the girl for helping him a lot in the battle. Mia replied to Himuro that he shouldn't thank her. The girl was very glad that she was useful to the guy, and was very useful to him. Mia started to disappear, and she told Mr. Himuro that she was saying goodbye to him. She will be waiting for his call again. Himuro decided to try to choose a card. All the cards appeared in front of him, and the guy realized that he could still use the cards. Himuro turned to Tinar and said that when his strength returned, they would be able to reach the capital immediately. This surprised the girl very much, and she asked Himuro if it was true. The guy replied that he wasn't sure exactly, but maybe they wouldn't be able to use this method. Tinar replied that everything was clear to him. Then you should not wishful thinking. They can continue on their way. Himuro agreed with the girl. When the guys got tired, they made small stops and gained strength. After that, they continued on their way. Himuro noticed that Tinar was breathing very heavily. The guy realized that she was very tired. This was not surprising to him. Himuro thought that Tinar had been captured in the dungeon even before him. Besides, she spent a lot of energy fighting. Tinar turned to the guy and said that a huge mountain appeared in front of them, which is the center of the Gallia forest. If you go around it and go through the forest, then the royal capital will be ahead. Himuro thought that they had a long way to go. Suddenly, Tinar lost consciousness and she fell to the ground. The guy was very scared of this. Himuro gently put the girl on her back and thought that he thought a little respite would not be enough for them. In this state, they definitely won't be able to get to the place. If they meet monsters in the forest, then they won't be able to deal with them. Himuro said he would have to rely on that card. Himuro held out his hands and said that enough time had passed. Most likely, he could already use the cards. In that case, the guy decided that he could help. Himuro decided to use one of the cards. The guy summoned the Crystal Dragon card. The ability of this card is the Crystal Dragon Breath. This is an incredibly beautiful dragon, as if descended from the pages of a fairy tale. Himuro was very surprised that such a huge and beautiful dragon appeared next to him. He greeted his master and asked the guy what his orders were, which enemy he needs to destroy. Himuro replied that he wanted the dragon to help them get to a certain place. This surprised the dragon, and he asked the guy again that he was asking to be moved. Himuro asked that he couldn't do that. The dragon replied that no, he had nothing against it. Himuro helped Tinar climb onto the dragon, and they flew towards the capital. The guy said that they were really flying. Himuro asked the crystal dragon to fly over the mountain in front of them. The dragon accepted the guy's order. Suddenly, Himuro said that he was seeing the royal capital. The guy thought that this was the capital of the kingdom of Yoma, Soisko, Vestria. The dragon asked the guy if it would be okay if he stopped at this place. Himuro replied that yes, if they landed too close to the capital, they might have problems. Himuro got off the dragon and thanked the crystal dragon for his help. The guy asked him if the dragon would be able to return to the map. The crystal dragon asked the guy to summon him to the battlefield next time. Himuro picked up the crystal dragon card and thought that when using the cards, he could take it back at any time. He should have remembered that. This fact can play an important role in thinking about tactics. Himuro said that the capital was already visible from this place, so they needed to get Tinar there as soon as possible. Suddenly, horses galloped past the guys, and there were 2 people on them who called out to the guy. One of them asked if he had seen a huge dragon. He landed somewhere in this place. Himuro immediately tensed up and thought that someone had noticed them. They couldn't get out of the capital that fast. The guy assumed that these were ordinary soldiers who were nearby. Himuro replied to the guys that no, he had not seen any dragon. The guy asked his partner if it was just their imagination, but he was told that this simply could not be because he had definitely seen a dragon. The guy got upset and looked away in the direction of Himuro. His eyes widened when he saw Tianar. The guy got off his horse and headed towards Himuro. In 1 second, he laid Himuro face down on the ground and started calling the guy names. He asked Himuro what he had done to his sister. The second guy ran up to Tianar and tried to shout at her. The girl began to recover, and the guy told Albert that their head was alive, but she urgently needed to see a doctor. Albert asked Himuro to get up from the ground. He decided to go back to the capital with his sister. The guy asked his partner to take Himuro to their headquarters and interrogate him. The guy understood his request. Albert told Himuro to remember that if the guy finds out that Himuro did something to his sister, he will never forgive him. The guys walked through the mountains and came to the gate. The guy turned to Himuro and said that he had saved their head from the captivity of monsters. Then they got to this place together. The guy asked if he understood everything correctly. Himuro, surrounded by many knights, replied to the guy that yes, that's right. The guy thought that they were under a lot of pressure. The knights looked at Himuro and couldn't understand why this particular guy was with their leader. The guy asked Himuro that he was telling them the truth. He really helped their head. At that moment, Albert came in and said that his sister was safe. He said that there were no serious injuries, so she would wake up in a few days. His friend asked if he had learned anything. They pointed at Himuro and said that he says he saved their head from the captivity of demons. And yet, he says that he is an alien. Albert was very surprised by this and asked again that Himuro was an alien. He grabbed the guy by the shirt and said he shouldn't joke like that. His sister is not so easy to catch. Albert was sure that ordinary monsters could not cope with his sister, unless it's Zardu himself. Himuro replied that it was. Zardu was there. Himuro added that Tianar was captured by Zardu. He killed Zarda and saved Tien. After these words, everyone around started laughing loudly. Albert asked Himuro what he meant by killing Zarda. Albert asked Himuro to be released. His friend asked if Albert was sure about this. The guy replied that he was an ordinary liar. He probably has nothing to do with his sister. He just found his sister unconscious and wanted to rob her. Before Himuro left the gate, Albert threw the guy a coin and said that it should be enough for one lunch. Albert sarcastically said that Himuro had helped his sister after all, so it was his gratitude. He asked the guy not to think that Albert from the House of Leighton was not paying the bills. Himuro took the coin and said that money is money. He turned back and saw a busy street with a lot of stalls and people. Himuro walked along this street and looked around. Himuro was surprised to say that this is what the capital really is. It was quite crowded there. Suddenly, the guy heard his stomach begin to rumble. Himuro said he hadn't eaten in quite a while. 1 silver coin could buy him lunch. Any food will do for him now. 2 guys came out of one place, and they told the owner that they had eaten their fill. They thanked the host for this. The owner asked them to come to him again next time. One of the guys told his friend that he had drunk too much. Himuro looked at the establishment and assumed it was a tavern. There should be at least some food. The guy was heading in his direction, when suddenly a man appeared behind him and called out to Himuro. The guy turned around and saw a girl who told Himuro that he was not allowed to go to this place. Himuro asked the girl who she was. The girl replied that her name was Misha. In response, Misha asked the guy what his name was. Himuro also introduced himself, and the girl said that he had a beautiful name. Suddenly, Himuro saw the girl's tail and cat ears. Misha said that this tavern is very expensive. If he does not buy alcohol, then he will not be allowed there. With 1 silver coin, he won't be able to buy anything. This upset Himuro, and the guy asked how she knew that he only had 1 silver coin. The girl replied that she saw him receive the coin when he left the knight's headquarters. She has very sharp eyes. Misha asked the guy if he was hungry. Himuro replied that it was. The girl said she thought so. After all, Misha is in the same situation. Misha told the guy that she would show him where there is a good tavern. There, 1 silver coin might be enough for both of them. Himuro asked the girl what she wanted him to pay for her. Misha confidently replied that yes, it is. Himuro thought that there was nothing dangerous about it. The guy doesn't think that Misha has any malicious intentions. Himuro replied to the girl that he was counting on her. The guy asked which way they should go. The girl thanked the guy and asked him to rely on him. Misha showed the guy where they needed to go. The girl asked that Himuro was in the capital for the first time, and from which capital he came. Himuro replied that he was from Japan. Misha said that she had never heard of such a capital. The girl asked where she was. Himuro said that she does not exist in this world. This is a country from his world. This surprised Misha, and she asked that Himuro was an alien. The guy replied that everything was correct. Himuro thought that they were passing through some dark corners. Suddenly, Misha said that they had come. Himuro looked up and saw that it was a tavern of 3 sides. The guy tensed up and thought that this was too suspicious a place. He was worried if everything would be okay. Himuro looked at the sign and thought that it seemed to him that not only the words, but also the inscriptions were recognized. The sign said that the tavern was closed. The guy turned to Misha and said that it was probably closed there, but the girl confidently knocked on the door of the tavern and told the owner to open the tavern. The owner asked Misha to stop screaming. He asked if she could see that the tavern was closed. Himuro was surprised when he saw a big cat in front of him. The guy sat down at the bar, and the cat asked Misha who it was who came with her. Misha replied that it was Himuro. He was her best friend. The guy was a little confused because he did not understand when they managed to become best friends. Misha said that he decided to treat her today. He says he came to this place from another world. The cat was very surprised and asked that Himuro was an alien. The cat asked the guy that he came from another world. Himuro replied that yes, he was there because of a strong earthquake. Misha told the cat that she and Himuro were very hungry, so he had to feed them with 1 silver coin. The cat replied that it was fine. They were closed for now, so he could cook something from what he had. Misha was very happy about this. The cat turned to Himuro and asked that he immediately got to the royal capital. The guy replied that no, he was quite far from the capital. A lot of things happened to him before he got to the capital. The cat replied that he must be lucky. Himuro asked what he meant. The cat replied that the further away he was from the capital, the more dangers he would encounter. Many were killed by bandits or attacked by monsters, and how someone who knows absolutely nothing about their world was able to safely reach the capital. Himuro asked what his name was. The cat replied that he could call him Potin, or the owner, as it suits him. Himuro apologized for wanting to ask a strange question. But still the guy asked that Potin is human. Potin replied that it was true. He was a beast man. Himuro asked what other races live in this country. Potin said that beastmen, humans, elves, and half-breeds live there. There are the most people here and the least elves. Himuro immediately remembered about Tiana and her squad. The guy turned to Misha and asked that she was a half-breed. Misha replied that everything was correct. The guys asked Himuro if there were elves in his world. The guy replied that no, only people live there. Misha asked the guy that there weren't even beastmen there. After a while, Potin brought the dish to the guys and said that everything was ready. Himuro and Misha were very surprised by the beautiful dish. Misha tried it and told the owner that he cooks the best. Himuro also tasted the dish and said it was very tasty. The sauce is perfect for this meat. Potin asked the guy how this dish tastes. Himuro replied that it was simply unbelievable. It was pleasant for Potin to listen to it. He asked the guy what he was going to do. Himuro has come to this place now, but he can't survive without money either. Potin asked if the guy had a plan. Himuro thought that was true. It is unknown if he will be able to return to his world. He has to think about survival in this world. Himuro asked if he could work at the tavern. Potin replied that the tavern was small and there were enough hands. Misha told the guy that in that case, why shouldn't he become an adventurer like her? The girl said that in the guild, adventurers can perform various tasks and receive money for them. Himuro asked the girl if she would take him to the guild. Misha replied that he could rely on her. The guys finished everything, and Misha told the owner that they had gone. Potin asked the guys to wait a bit. He held out the cloak and asked Himuro to take it. Potin said that Himuro would be stared at if they saw blood, so he can wear it until he buys new clothes for himself. Himuro asked Potin if he could really take it. Potin replied that he doesn't use it, so the guy doesn't have to worry about it. This is his contribution to a regular customer. Himuro put on a raincoat and replied that yes, he would not forget his kindness. At that moment, Tiana woke up in the knight's headquarters. The girl asked where she was. Albert jumped out of his seat and told his sister that she had finally woken up. Tiana rose slightly from the bed, and Albert told his sister that she should not strain herself yet. Tiana asked the guy how she ended up in their hospital. Suddenly, the girl remembered about Himuro and asked where he was now. Where did the guy who was with her go? Albert asked his sister what she was saying about that liar. This angered Tiana, and the girl asked why he was a liar. Albert replied that he was talking complete nonsense, so he kicked him out. Himuro told Albert that they say Tienar was captured and he saved her. Most likely, he just wanted to get a reward from the girl. And besides, Himuro boasted that he had defeated Zarda himself. Albert laughed and told Tienar that she shouldn't worry. As a member of the Leifton family, he gave him a silver coin and threw him out. Tienar got very angry and slapped her brother sharply in the face. The girl thought he was a fool. Albert asked his sister in perplexity why she had done this. Tienar shouted that everything Himuro said was absolutely true. He's not a liar at all. The girl assured the guy that Himuro was a hero, that he defeated Zarda in front of her eyes. And for that, Albert just chased Himuro away. Tienar asked to find him immediately. Albert replied that he understood her. Tienar was very sad, and she was constantly thinking about Himuro. Meanwhile, Misha and Himuro approached the Adventurers Guild. The guys at the entrance began to hear the tasks that someone needed an escort to the Aluna Arena. Someone needs time, but 10 gold coins will solve this issue. One adventurer was outraged that the extermination of goblins near the village of Gata was only 3 gold, but it costs at least 4. Another adventurer asked those present if anyone had healing magic. Misha turned to the guy and asked him to follow her. They approached the receptionist, who immediately noticed Misha. Misha told the girl that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, but the receptionist reminded her that she had visited them yesterday. The receptionist asked that Misha didn't find an assignment of rank F today. The girl was very sad and she agreed with her. The receptionist said that if she gets the E rank, she will have a job for Misha. Misha replied that the rank promotion test was too difficult for her. She had already failed it 10 times. The receptionist asked Misha who came with her. The guy was very unusual for her. Misha replied that this was her best friend. He was from another world. The receptionist was very surprised and asked Misha what she said. This guy is from another world. Misha told me that he had come to become an adventurer, but she was wondering if the guy was an alien. Then it was bad. The receptionist replied that there was no problem. In the past, there were several otherworlders who were able to become famous adventurers. The receptionist turned to Himuro and said that if he wanted to register as a member of the guild, then he needed to get the rank of an adventurer from her. The girl said that there are 7 ranks in total. Rank S is the highest, followed by A, B, C, D, E, and F rank. Each query has its own rank. Adventurers can take tasks if their rank is the same or higher than the rank of the assignment. There are many C ranks queries with a good reward. After reaching the B rank, he will become very famous and rich. The girl handed the guy a ball and told him to put his hand on it. The guy held out his hand, and the receptionist saw all the information about Himuro. The girl said that his strength is slightly below average, but there's no magic power. The girl asked Himuro if he might have special skills or hidden abilities. Maybe he's good at sword fighting, martial arts, or he's good at throwing knives. But Himuro replied that no, he doesn't know how to do anything like that. This slightly upset the girl. The girl apologized to Himuro and said that he was awarded the lowest F rank. The guy agreed and said that he understood everything. This surprised the receptionist very much, and she asked the guy why he wasn't upset. There are extremely few F rank queries. Himuro replied that he did not think he would remain in F rank forever. The guy remembered that the girl had previously talked about the exam for promotion. The receptionist replied that yes, now he can register as an adventurer. The girl began to think about the guy's situation. She was looking at her book and thinking about it. Himuro noticed the girl's book and realized that it was the same list. Himuro asked the girl if there was a man named Nanahara on her list. The guy said that she came from the same world as himself. He thinks Nanahara might have checked in about 4 or 5 days ago. The receptionist decided to find the girl and said that there was no such name on her lists. It upset the guy. Himuro said that maybe she could come in the future. The guy asked if she would come to their guild. Could she tell her about him? The receptionist replied that yes, of course. The girl handed the guy a card and asked him to take it. Himuro asked in surprise what it was. The girl said that this was his adventurer's ID. It's an extremely important item, so he shouldn't lose it. The girl said that each rank has its own color. Rank F is brown. Rank E is light brown. Rank D is green. Rank C is blue. Rank B is silver. Rank A is gold. And for rank A is gold. And for rank S, it is white. Many adventurers attach it to their belts. The girl added that their registration was completed. She asked Himuro and Misha to take care of themselves. Himuro attached his ID to his belt and thought that he was an adventurer now. He had a rather strange feeling. But the guy doesn't have any assignments yet. Misha turned to Himuro and said that there were no tasks for them yet. She invited the guy to go to the Gallia forest. Himuro asked why they needed to go there. The girl said that if they catch a bird or collect herbs, they can be sold. She always does that when she doesn't have a job. The girl suggested Himuro to join a group. She knows this forest well, so the two of them will be able to explore a lot. Himuro thought that it turns out that there are other ways to earn money. The guy replied that then Misha would be their leader. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the Knights of the White Dragon, the guy knocked on the door and apologized for bothering him. He said that Tiener had regained consciousness. He was told that it was good. He asked the guy how her psychological state was. The guy replied that everything was stable. However, she says something strange. It was hard to believe. The guy said that Tienar tells them all that Zardu is dead. The man asked the guy to immediately send a reconnaissance group to the Gallia forest, and he would personally talk to Tienar. The guy accepted the order. Meanwhile, the guys caught the first bird, and Misha said they were a great team. The girl said that there are not so many monsters in the Gallia forest now. There are few places where good herbs grow, so they can go further. Himuro thought that maybe he should get a weapon. The guy decided to choose a card for himself. Misha noticed this and was very surprised. Himuro chose the item card, the Moonblade. Misha was surprised and asked Himuro that he had a vault. The guy asked the girl what it was. Misha said that this is a special space in which you can store objects. Few people have this skill. Himuro replied that his ability was slightly different from this vault. At that moment, the guy saw a huge monster in front of them. Misha was scared, but Himuro took everything into his own hands and asked the girl to step back. Misha shouted that ogres are very strong monsters. He shouldn't be in this place. The ogre shouted to the guys that they were also their enemies, and he immediately ran towards them. The ogre struck at the guy, but Himuro was confident in himself, and he told Misha that everything was fine. The guy thought that even though he had a blade, it was dangerous to attack head-on. He needs to use the summoning card right now. Himuro tried to jump back to buy himself time, but the ogre was catching up with him. The guy tensed up a lot, because he realized that he would not have time to summon the card, when the ogre raised his hand, and the guy did not understand how to act. Suddenly, someone threw a blade right into the monster's hand. Ogre and Himuro were surprised by this, because there was no one else in the forest. Suddenly, several adventurers came running to the guys. The girl grabbed several knives, which she threw at the monster. While the ogre was trying to pull out all these knives, another guy attacked him from behind. Zack. The ogre abruptly turned back and tried to hit the guy named Moore, but he didn't succeed. In the next instant, the girl launched the blade directly into the monster's forehead. After this blow, the monster fell to the ground, and Himuro stood in surprise and watched the guys fight. Himuro looked at the color of the adventurer's stripes and realized that they were D-rank adventurers. The girl turned to Himuro and said that they were the first to start a battle with him. They have a mission to hunt him, so she warned the guys not to even think about getting their prey. Himuro replied that he wasn't going to. The guy doesn't think they could beat him. The girl replied that then they had no problems. The girl looked at the guys carefully and saw that they had rank F patches. This surprised her very much. The adventurer said that with such a rank, they definitely would not have been able to defeat this monster. The girl asked the guys that they were newbies. Himuro replied that yes, it is. He just became an adventurer today. He has only recently entered this world and still does not know much about monsters. The girl asked the guy in surprise that he was an alien. This is the first time she has met such people. The girl said her name was Renee, and she asked the guy what his name was. Himuro and Misha introduced themselves to the girl. Renee asked to be allowed to give the guys some advice. The girl said that it was better for them not to come to the Gallia forest yet. A lot has changed recently, and the monsters have become more active. One of the adventurers of the group turned to Rena and offered to send her on her way. They will complete one more task, and then they will be able to return back. Suddenly, an arrow suddenly hit Moore's shoulder. The guys were very surprised by the unexpected attack, and they were wary. Renee turned to Moore and asked how he was feeling. Zack started to get angry, and he asked what it was. The guy noticed that there was a goblin standing at the top, who had a bow and arrows in his hands. Renee was very surprised when she saw the goblin, and asked how he could be in such a place. Zack replied to the girl that he was only one, so they could handle him. But Moore told the guy that no, he was wrong about that. The guys looked around and saw that there were a lot of goblins around them. The guys realized that they were all surrounded by them. Himuro immediately thought about whether he should use his cards in front of these adventurers. The guys immediately began to destroy the goblins, chopping them in half. Himuro also did not stand still. He hit one of the goblins with all his might with his blade. But there were two more goblins behind the guy. Renee helped the guy by throwing her knives at their heads. Himuro thanked the girl for saving him. Renee replied that he could ask her for help. The goblins were advancing on the guys. Renee told the team that there were too many of them. They've already killed a lot, but they're still not ending. Suddenly, Zack turned to the guys and said that they could run away. The guy was trying to convince the team that at this rate the goblins would just kill them. If they can get out of the forest, they won't follow them. Zack was destroying monsters and told the guys that he would clear a path for them so they could escape. Renee and Himuro immediately ran towards the exit of the forest. The goblins ran after them, but they never managed to catch up with the guys. When the team came out of the forest, they were very tired. Zack said that it just couldn't be. He couldn't understand why such a crowd of goblins was so close to the capital. Moore said this had never happened before. He was sure it was because of that damn forest. Moore said they needed to report all this to the guild. Suddenly, the guys noticed that Renee was missing because she was not among the guys. Everyone immediately began to panic. No one understood where she could have gone. Himuro was scared and assumed that she might have been killed. But Moore replied that no, it wasn't. Goblins need women to reproduce. Most likely, they grabbed her and took her to their lair. Himuro shouted to the guys that they had to save Renee. Zack replied that it was all understandable, but they couldn't handle it alone. Moore suggested that everyone return to the capital because they need to recruit more people to save the commander. Himuro turned to the guys and asked them if they knew where the goblins' lair was. Zack replied that goblins had been seen in the ruins to the west of the capital, so perhaps it was there. The guy was sure that there were definitely not a few goblins there. The guys ran towards the capital and shouted that they had to hurry. Himuro turned to Misha and asked if she knew where the ruins they were talking about were. The girl awkwardly replied that yes, she knew about it. The guy asked her to take him there right now. After a while, Misha brought Himuro to the right place. The guys looked out from behind the tree and said that they saw several goblins at the entrance, so they must be there. Himuro thanked Misha for helping him. The guy told the girl that now she can return to the capital. Misha asked the guy what he was going to do with the goblins. The guy replied that he really wanted to save Renee. Then Misha confidently said that she would also go with him. She's the leader of their team. Himuro patted Misha on the head and said that she needed to take her packed things to the capital. He asked the girl not to worry about it, because he wasn't going to die. And besides, the guy said that no matter how many goblins there are, they are much weaker than Zardu. When Mishu ran towards the capital, Himuro decided to choose a map for himself. He pulled out one of them and summoned the innocent killer Alice. It was written on the map that Alice was a master of knives and martial arts. The girl was sure that killing people was fun. As soon as Alice appeared near Himuro, the girl immediately pointed her knife at the guy, but he did not even move. The girl with crazy eyes said she was glad because Himuro had finally called her. Alice asked the guy that he knew she would stop the knife right next to his throat. Himuro replied that, of course. The guy said that if he dies, then she will disappear. Then she won't be able to kill anymore. Besides, he didn't feel like killing her. Alice said she understood everything. The girl hopes that the master will allow her to enjoy the murders to her heart's content. Alice asked the guy who she needed to kill. Himuro said that there is a man in these ruins whom he wants to save, but there are a lot of goblins there. Alice's task will be to distract all these goblins, and Himuro himself will save the hostage at this time. Alina asked the guy if she could kill them all. The guy replied that she could only kill goblins. Alice laughed and said that she understood everything. When the girl entered the ruins, she immediately began attacking goblins. The girl was able to immediately destroy several monsters at once. The girl skillfully coped with a large number of goblins. She struck both with her feet and with her weapon. The girl bloodthirstily pulled the blade out of the monster's throat and headed towards the rest of the goblins. Alice said it wasn't enough for her. It was too little. She wants more and more. The girl asked if she could kill them all. Meanwhile, a hostage was lying in solitary confinement, guarded by a goblin. That hostage was Renee, who said she hurt her head. At that moment, the girl heard a sharp sound. Himuro came into her cage. The girl was very surprised that a guy came to her, and she asked what he was doing there. Himuro replied that he was glad that she was safe. He came to save the girl. Renee asked the guy, what about Zack and Moore? Himuro said that they went to the capital to recruit more people. Renee asked what was going on. He came alone. Himuro held out his hand to the girl and said that they had better hurry up, or she would prefer to stay in this place. Renee replied that no, she did not agree to that. Renee got to her feet and said she was in pain. Himuro asked the girl if she could walk. The girl replied that she would be able to walk, but she would have to wait for the fights. Renee told the guy that it was stupid to come there alone. It must have been difficult to get to this place. Himuro replied that there was nothing special about it. The girl remembered that the guy only has the rank of F. Suddenly, the guys saw goblins on their way. Himuro immediately decided to choose a card for himself. It was a spell card, full as a fireball. The guy sent a fireball at the goblins and they instantly burned down. Himuro thought that the camera had one goblin and there were two more in the corridor, so there were only 3 goblins. The rest of the monsters are now occupied by Alice. Renee turned to Himuro and asked how he was able to use the spell because he has the rank of F. The guy said that he does not know magic, but he has special items with spells. With them, he can use attacking spells above the D rank. Suddenly, Renee shouted to Himuro that there was a huge monster behind him. The guy jumped away from the monster and the guys looked at him carefully. Himuro asked the ogre, which means he is the boss of these ruins. Renee asked the guy that this monster was in a rage. The guy replied that he thinks the monster is angry that they killed their goblins. The monster tried to hit the guys, but they managed to jump away. Renee saw that there was a weapon lying not far from her, so she grabbed it and threw it at the monster. The ogre managed to deflect the girl's blow and broke the weapon right in flight. Himuro thought that everything was going great, and this would be his chance. The guy decided to choose a card again, but at that moment, Himuro noticed that a large stone was flying straight at him. In the last seconds, Himuro pulled his head to the side, and the stone hit the wall. There was a big dent in the wall from the stone. Himuro looked at the monster and saw that he had shards of stone in his hand. The guy thought that if he hit him with these fragments, then he would be finished. And so the ogre swung a stone at the guy, and Himuro tensed up a lot. The monster launched several stones at once, but Himuro was able to escape from them. The guy stopped near the wall and felt that the force was directed at him again. The guy turned around and saw that it was a monster that swung at Himuro with its weapon. Renee asked the guy if he could use spells again. Himuro replied that he needed time to prepare before using it. Renee replied that they were talking about this in advance. At that moment, someone appeared from a small gap and watched the guys fight. Himuro tried to defend himself with his hands from the attacks of the monster. Suddenly, the monster struck a blow that pushed the guy back. Himuro slammed into the wall and hit his head on it. Renee was very scared for the guy. The ogre took advantage of the situation and decided to attack the guy, but he was immediately hit in the head with a jug. Himuro was very surprised and looked at the place from where he was thrown. It was Misha who came to Himuro's aid. The girl bravely began to throw everything she had in her hands at the monster. This made the ogre very angry, but Himuro had time to choose a map for himself. The monster turned to the guy and noticed that there was something strange around him. Himuro decided to apply an item card, Asa. It's a stormy wind. The monster immediately began to be chopped into many pieces. The ogre fell to the ground, and a joyful Misha ran to Himuro and said that he had succeeded. Himuro asked the girl if she hadn't returned back to the capital. The girl replied that she was very worried about him. Himuro stroked the girl and said that, in any case, she saved him. So he was very grateful to her. At that moment, Alice came to the guys and asked what they had already finished. Alice was covered in blood, and the girl said in frustration that they had a lot more fun there. Himuro asked Alice what happened to the goblins there. The girl replied that, of course, they were all dead. There were a lot of them, but they were all weaklings. The girl killed them all in an instant. Alice happily asked Himuro if they could continue and who else she could kill. She would like to kill people already. Himuro replied that he would rather return the card. Alice tried to stop the guy, but it was already too late. Himuro thought that although she was useful in battle, she was too dangerous for others. The guy needed to think about where to use it. Renee asked the guy what it was, because the man had just disappeared. The girl wondered if he was a magician using spells. Himuro replied that he could also summon some creatures. Renee admitted that having such abilities, he definitely does not belong in the F rank. Renee asked Himuro who he was. The guy replied that he was a simple card caster. At that moment, a small meeting was taking place near the gate. Decrees were handed out that Ak and Leon would be engaged in support. Mark will remain to guard the entrance. They'll be back as soon as they save Renee. When the guys tuned in that they were going to look for Renee, in the distance they saw her walking with Himuro. The guys were very surprised that the guy helped find the girl. After a while, the guy asked how the investigation was going. He was told that so far, no evidence of Zardy's death had been found. There are also very few rumors in the city. The guy said that according to the description received from Tianar, they also learned about Himuro Kanata. However, his whereabouts are still unknown. The guy was shown the drawing, and he said it was just terrible. The guy said that if what Tianar says is true, then this guy has power that surpasses Zarda himself. With such strength, he is able to stand up to the whole country. The guy was very interested in what kind of person Himuro Kanata was. Meanwhile, Nanahara was sitting alone in the cage. She was approached by a monster who said that today was the day of the test. He asked the girl to refresh herself so that her plant of life would be in excellent condition, and she better do her best. The girl had a strange plant on her arm. Meanwhile, Misha ran into the Adventurers Guild and screamed very loudly. The girl said she overslept. Miluka met her with a surprised look. Misha turned to Miluka and asked if she had a job today. The girl was very worried. Milka replied that until recently there were 2 tasks for the F rank, but they were all sorted out. Misha started to panic even more, and she shouted that she was late. Milka stroked Misha's head. Misha said that she really wanted to earn money and eat something delicious today. At that moment, the girl heard someone call out to a guy with a D rank and asked him to come over. The guys told the guy that they did not have enough people to complete the task, so they would like to invite him to join them, and they would share the profits equally. Misha thought that, after all, the higher the rank, the easier it is to find a team. No one invites her with an F-rat. It was very insulting for the girl. Misha said that she would rather go to the Galia forest and collect something. The girl said goodbye to Miluka, and the receptionist asked Misha to be careful. When Misha came to the forest, the girl decided that today she would be alone in gathering. Suddenly, something caught her attention. The girl saw several birds standing in front of her. Misha remembered that these were Chamo birds. The girl realized that the big bird, which is in the middle, can definitely be sold to her for a lot. Suddenly, one of the birds noticed how Misha started running at her. The girl shouted that she did not hold a grudge against them. But in this world, the strongest survives. Suddenly, the girl started screaming in pain because the bird hit her on the head. The bird immediately began to run away from Misha, and the girl tried to persuade the bird to stop and wait for her. Misha looked after the birds and said that they had run away from her. The girl was upset and realized that after all, she couldn't catch them alone. She'll have to go find something else. After a while, Misha noticed that someone had lied about mountain herbs. After that, the girl ran away from the bees and she apologized to them for disturbing her. The girl was very upset and said that nothing was working out for her. She won't eat anything today. Misha realized that she had no choice left, so today she would have to go there. The girl carefully climbed onto the hill and stopped right in front of the cave. Misha said that she had come to the place. Meanwhile, in the cave itself, a large snake curled up and slept. The girl carefully peeked around the corner and saw that an ancient serpent was lying there. Today, he is also in this place. The girl looked the other way and realized that the thing was in place. It was a mushroom gem. The girl decided that if she sold it, she would get rich. Last time she was scared of the ancient serpent and left, but today she will do it. Misha carefully decided to walk around the ancient snake so as not to wake it up. The girl decided that it was better for her not to make noise now. Suddenly, the girl stumbled over a stone and realized that her business was bad. At the same moment, the ancient serpent woke up, which stretched up. The girl realized that he was huge. Misha started shouting that she was not the snake's enemy. She didn't want to bother him. She just needed that mushroom. The girl said in a panic that she was just hungry and really wanted to eat. If she sells this gem, she can even buy herself a steak. The girl assured the snake that she was not tasty at all. The ancient serpent approached the girl. He began to crawl around her and sniff her out. After the ancient serpent sniffed the girl, he curled up into a ball again and fell asleep. This surprised the girl, but she continued on her way to the mushroom anyway. Misha managed to get it and rip it off. When the girl headed towards the exit of the cave, Misha turned to the ancient snake and thanked him. When Misha came out of the cave, she shouted loudly that she had this precious mushroom. The girl wanted to put it in her bag and said that now she cannot worry about food for a while. She decided to take it deeper so as not to lose it for sure. But Misha did not keep track of the mushroom, and it began to roll down the cliff. The girl saw it at the very last moment. When the mushroom fell to the ground and broke, Misha screamed very bitterly. Thus, for today, Misha has not found any prey. The girl returned to the capital again. She was very sad and said that the girl had not eaten anything since yesterday. Sellers started asking their customers who wanted fried potatoes with butter, because today they add even more oil. Another seller asked the guys if they would like to try a stew fruit pie. It's freshly baked. Misha began to get even more upset. The girl said that she really wants to eat. The girl heard strange noises and looked at the gate of the knight's headquarters. Misha saw that a coin was thrown to the guy and said that he would have enough of it for lunch. The girl thought he had a silver coin. It would definitely be enough to eat enough in the tavern of the three sides. Misha didn't understand why he was staring around. The girl assumed that he was a foreigner. Something tells her that he is hungry too. When Misha saw Himuro approach the establishment, the girl immediately went to the guy. She stopped the guy and said he couldn't go to that place. Thus, Misha and Himuro met each other. After a while, the guys came to the clothing store, and Renee asked the guy what he thought about this jacket. Misha said she was wearing too much fur. Himuro put on another suit, and the girls asked the guy how he liked these clothes. The girls thought it looked a little wild. After that, the guy changed his clothes again, and everyone started laughing at his appearance. Renee asked the guys to see what kind of charm she found. Misha said that the clothes in her hands might also fit. Himuro asked the guys when they would stop fooling around. Renee asked the guy what he meant. After all, they are as serious as possible. The girls turned to Himuro and said that one day he would rise to the B rank or even higher. The clothes must match. Himuro thought that he hoped it wouldn't be something that stood out. The girls decided that they would try on more clothes. And then another one. Himuro calmly replied that he understood them. After a while, Himuro tried on another outfit, and Renee said it was a good option. Misha agreed with the girl. Renee asked the guy if he was comfortable. Himuro replied that it was quite convenient, and it was quite easy to move. The seller said that if they handed over the clothes of the Otherworlder, he would sell everything for 4 silver coins. Renee replied that they agreed. Himuro thanked the girl, and said that she had paid for his overnight stay and bought clothes for him. Renee said it was thanks to him for saving her from the goblins. Moreover, it is beneficial for her to make him a debtor. Renee told the guys that she still had things to do today, so she would go. The guys said goodbye to each other. Himuro asked Misha what they would do now. The girl replied that she was going to rest at the Tavern of Three Sides. Misha asked the guy where he was planning to go. Himuro replied that he would explore the city a bit. The guys decided to say goodbye and meet at the tavern. When Himuro was walking around the city, he heard that someone was trying to shout at him. It was a very angry Albert who told the guy that he had finally found him. Himuro forgot Albert's name and asked what his name was. The guy shouted his name and said he was from the great house of Riften. Albert asked the guy that he had become an adventurer. Himuro replied that something like that. Albert thought that Himuro only had the rank of F. He's just an ordinary weakling. Albert told the guy that he had important business with Himuro. He should shut up and follow him. Himuro was surprised and asked where he was calling him. Albert replied that they were going to the barracks of the Knights of the White Dragon. As the boys were walking down the street, Himuro heard someone call out to him. It was Tynar who called the guy. The girl took Himuro's hands and said that she was very glad that they had met each other again. She hadn't even had time to thank him. The girl thanked Himuro for saving her. Himuro noticed that the girl's hair had changed. Himuro asked the girl that she had already recovered. Tynar replied that yes, she was completely healthy now. But they said upstairs that she still needed some time to rest. Tynar told the guy that the servants had made her a new hairstyle during her vacation. The girl asked Himuro if he liked her. Himuro replied that it suits her very well. The girl thanked him for the compliment. Albert was listening to their whole conversation, and he was very angry. Albert couldn't stand it and turned to his sister. The guy said that he still did not trust him, because he was sure that this scoundrel could not defeat Zarda. Tynar was indignant and asked the guy what he was doing again. He can't even believe his own sister. Albert replied that he was an F rank. He wouldn't have had a chance against Zardu. At that moment, someone came up to the guys and asked what kind of noise they had there. Himuro turned around and saw that a young guy had approached them. and a girl was standing behind him. The guy asked Himuro what it means. He is Kanata. The guy introduced himself and said that his name was Rook. He was the commander of the Order of the Knights of the White Dragon. The guy was pleased to meet Himuro. Himuro replied that it was nice to meet him too. The guy thought that at the first glance, everything became clear to him. This guy is very strong. Ryuk told the guy that TNR owed him a lot. He asked to be allowed to express gratitude from him personally. Ryuk asked Himuro if it was true that he had killed Zarda. TNR immediately turned to the commander and asked that now he did not believe her either. Ryuk asked the girl not to talk like that. The guy said that he more than trusts TNR, but this case is exceptional. That's why he wants to make sure of it again. The girl frowned because of this. Ryuk asked the guy again if it was true. Himuro replied that yes, it was true. But Himuro was interrupted by Albert, who said that of course this was not true. He can bet that this plow has cast an illusion on his sister and is deceiving them. Some F-rank will never defeat Zarda in life. Himuro thought it was no surprise to him that he didn't believe him. Albert turned to Commander Ryuk and asked to let her fight him. The guy said that he would expose this deceiver here and now. He won't let him carry on with this nonsense. Ryuk asked Albert to stop acting like that right now. The guy turned to Himuro and asked what he would say to that. They have a healer, so they will cure him if anything happens. Himuro did not think long and replied that he agreed to it. Tianer was very upset and apologized to Himuro. The girl was sure that it was all because of her wayward younger brother. Himuro asked Tianar if Albert was strong. The girl replied that he was weaker than her, but he was good with a sword. However, an impulsive character sometimes has a bad effect on his style. Ryuk handed the guy the weapon and told him that they use these swords in training. The blade is covered with resin, so the maximum that threatens him is a fracture. Ryuk added that now he wants to talk about the conditions of victory. Himuro admitted that, to be honest, he was not used to fighting with swords. The guy asked if they could make it a condition of victory not to defeat the enemy, but to strike the first blow. Rai replied that it was fine. Then he would get it to Albert. Albert got ready for battle and told Himuro to move. Himuro apologized to the guy and said that his shoelace was untied. Albert called him a slob. When the guys stood in front of each other, Renee asked the guys if they were ready. Ryuk thought that according to Tianer's report, he was monstrously strong. He really wanted to see it. Suddenly, Renee announced that they were starting a battle. Albert immediately struck the first blow towards Himuro. The guy managed to put his sword in front of him so as not to get injured. Himuro started to take a few steps back, and Albert continued to strike at the guy. Albert asked his opponent what had happened to him. All he can do is run away from him. Albert was hitting Himuro uncontrollably. The guy didn't like the way Himuro was fighting at all, so he shouted that everything was happening too slowly. Suddenly, the loud sound of swords rang out. Albert managed to make a hit on Himuro's sword so that he could not withstand it. The guy's weapon flew back. Tianar and Ryuk watched the battle. The girl was very worried about Himuro. Albert was very glad that Himuro had lost his weapon. The guy swung and said it was the end. Suddenly, Himuro took off abruptly and rushed towards Albert. Himuro found himself behind his opponent's back, and Albert did not understand at all how this happened. Himuro managed to put out his fist and hit Albert in the back with it. The guy was delighted and said that the victory was his. Himuro looked at his opponent and thought that this duel with Albert, frankly speaking, was not something useful for him. If he wins, he may be seen as a threat, so the guy thought it was better for him to lose and not use them. However, Himuro remembered how he was in the first place in his favorite game. This gave the guy strength, so he thought he had to win in any way. The guy couldn't afford to lose. Albert turned to Himuro and asked him to move because he had been preparing for too long. Himuro apologized to his opponent and said that his shoelace was untied. Albert called him a slob. At that moment, Himuro decided to take advantage of the convenient opportunity to call up his cards. There were many available maps around Himuro that he could use. Before the battle, Himuro hid his card to use it at a convenient moment. The guy thought that he needed to win the fight without revealing his abilities. In order to do this, you need to create a blind spot and quickly activate the card in it. To do this, Himuro chose an item card, Echo, a mechanical blade. The blade increases the speed and protection of the wearer. Himuro thought that the abilities of this mechanical blade were simple, low. It could grant the wearer temporary acceleration. Thanks to this ability, Himuro was able to quickly get behind Albert and punch him first. Everyone around was stunned by the news that Albert had lost this battle. Albert couldn't understand what had just happened. Ryuk told the guys that Himuro won. Everything went honestly. Albert didn't want to accept this scenario, so he asked Ryuk to wait and not jump to conclusions because that's not all. But Ryuk replied to the guy that that was it. He had already lost. Ryuk said that he told them before the start of the fight that the one who strikes the first blow would win. In addition, he did not say that it should be applied with a sword. The guy asked Albert that a native of the great house of Liftons does not keep his word. These words made Albert very angry. The guy pointed his finger at Himuro and asked him to remember so that he would not think that the guy had won. Albert will never be able to recognize his power. Himuro thought that he had attracted too much attention to him. Tiana ran up to Himuro, who told the guy that she knew that he would win this battle. The girl was sure that her brother had learned a lesson from this. At that moment, Ryuk was watching the guys, and the guy thought that he didn't feel any magic. Ryuk thought that something had happened before Himuro attacked Albert from the rear. When his sword was thrown away, Himuro seemed to deliberately change his stance. The guy didn't have time to check before the match if he had any magic item, but the guy was sure that he had something hidden behind his cloak, but he doesn't know what exactly. Ryuk turned to Himuro and said that he had fought well. At that moment, one of the knights ran up to the arena and started calling loudly for Commander Ryuk. The knight said that the report of the scouts of the Gallia Forest had arrived. It states that Zardu's death has been confirmed. After this information, the knights in the capital began to actively discuss Zardu's death. No one could believe that this would ever happen. People asked each other not to tell anyone, but they spread rumors about it anyway. The headquarters decided to gather people in order to discuss the main news. The man asked if other countries knew about Zardu's demise. The non-aggression pact with neighboring countries is based on its frightening power. They cannot allow the termination of the contract. The news of Zardu's death cannot be disclosed to the public yet. This may cause unnecessary confusion, but people didn't know if it would eventually spread. No one could believe that Zardu was defeated by a man with the rank of F. They thought it was a joke because even people with S rank are not able to do it. People assumed it sounded like the truth, and everyone started to find out that this man's name was Himuro Kanata. Ryuk came to Himuro and said that he had kept the guy waiting, but now they can go. Ryuk apologized for having to bring him to the palace. Their king wants to talk to the guy personally. Himuro asked if Ryuk knew how he should behave at the king's reception. Ryuk said that he could repeat after him, and then everything would be fine. And besides, Himuro is an alien, so the king will forgive everything. Himuro was very worried about it anyway, and the guy wondered if everything would be okay. When Ryuk and Himuro approached the throne room, the guy turned to His Majesty and said that he had brought the otherworldly Himuro Kanata. The king invited them to the throne room. The king asked the guy that he was the Himuro Kanata. Commander Rugain was telling him about the guy. The king said that he had heard that Himuro had defeated Zarda, but he had no idea exactly how he could do it. How did he defeat this monster? Himuro replied that he did it with a spell. However, it may be different from the spells in this world. The king asked the guy if he could demonstrate it to them now. Himuro replied that he was afraid that it would be impossible now. He can't use it all the time. The king turned to Minister Gilmar and asked him what he thought about this. The minister replied that he was clearly lying. His eye is able to see magic in others, but this guy doesn't have it. The king asked the minister again what he was saying. He had no magic. Gilmaru replied that it's not that he doesn't have magic now. He didn't have it originally. So the minister was sure that there was no way someone like this guy could defeat Zarda. Ryuk stopped the discussion between the minister and the king. Everyone immediately looked at Ryuk, but Gilmaru asked Commander Ryuk to keep quiet, because he was not allowed to speak. The king stopped the minister and told him to speak out. Ryuk knelt down on one knee and said that Himuro had found out about Zardu's death before their intelligence group. They have the testimonies of his subordinates who defeated Zarda. The guy doesn't think they're not lying. Gilmaru asked Commander Ryuk that he believed he understood more about these outsiders than he did about the internal affairs of this country. The minister claimed that Himuro found out about Zardu's death by accident. As proof, they could just look at his patch. The man reminded that this boy is registered as a traveler, rank F. To claim that someone like him defeated Zarda is simply ridiculous. Gilmaru added that Zardu had insanely strong bodyguards, known as the Four Gods. Presumably, they simply rebelled against his oppression and promoted these kids. The king replied that it sounded most likely. Gilmer said he was sorry. If it wasn't for the minister, Himuro would have already received the award. Himuro turned to the king and told him that this fraudster should be punished. When Himuro heard these words, he tensed up very much. Himuro continued to prove to the king that he was not just lying. In some circumstances, it was harm and permission for the whole country. So they can't accept that. The king replied that he agreed with the minister. He instructed the guards to put this man in jail. They have to take him away right now. Himuro couldn't figure out how it happened. The guy was immediately taken away and put in a cage. Himuro said that he would never have thought that he would go to prison a second time. The guy thought there was something carved on the bars. He thinks it's a counter curse. Himuro realized that with his help, he would probably be able to escape from there. But in that case, he would become a fugitive. The guy lay down on the cold floor of the cell and thought that it was bad that people were imprisoned when monsters roam the world. He decided to just wait and see what would happen next. It took some more time while Himuro was in prison all alone. Suddenly, the guy heard that someone was heading in his direction. Himuro saw that it was Teinar. The girl apologized to the guy for the fact that everything happened in this way. Now the girl decided to get him out of there. She opened the cage, and the guy heard that someone asked Teinar that it was Mr. Himuro Kanata. The girl said that she was very pleased to meet him. The girl introduced herself by the name of Lisella. She is the princess of the kingdom of M. The guy was very surprised that the princess herself came to him. Himuro replied that he was also pleased to meet her. Teinar said that it was the princess who arranged everything so that he could get out. Himuro thanked the girl for her help. Lisella replied that he shouldn't thank her because it was Teinar who desperately asked her to do so. Lisella was embarrassed and laughed a little, but the guys did not understand the girl. Teinar asked the princess what the problem was. The girl replied that it didn't matter. Himuro asked Lisella if she was going to be okay. Wouldn't Gilman be mad at her? Lisella replied that she was still a princess. She had some kind of power. She also spoke with the Minister of Justice. In her opinion, Gilman Himuro is now completely indifferent. The girl was sure that he was happy to show himself in a good light in front of his father. The girl added that she had also heard about Zarda. Lisella asked the guy to accept the gratitude from her father. The girl asked Himuro that he couldn't believe his ears. She and Teinar have been friends since childhood and no one else, but she definitely wouldn't lie. Lisella asked the guy if he liked Teinar, because she told her that recently. Teinar got very excited and started yelling at the girl to stop saying too much. Teinar told Himuro that she needed to give him something. The girl handed the guy a bag and said that it was for him. There were gold coins inside the bag. Teinar thanked the guy for saving her. Himuro asked the girl why there were so many coins. Teinar replied that this was her gratitude to the guy for saving her life. The girl told Himuro that if something happens to him, he can always rely on her. She will be happy to help the guy. The guys shook hands, and the girl said that Himuro was her precious friend. They said goodbye to each other. Himuro came to Potan's tavern and showed the guys a bag of coins. The guys were very surprised and said it was very cool. Potan counted the coins and said he counted 30 pieces. You can have fun with them for a long time. Misha was against it, and she assured Himuro not to spend this money for nothing. Even if they are, the guy should not lose his vigilance. He needed to work even harder. Himuro replied that, yes, he agreed with the girl. Potan asked the guy what he would do with the gold coins. He doesn't think it's a good idea to carry them with you on trips. Himuro thought about it and replied that they were heavy, and they couldn't be stuffed into a bag. Misha asked the guy what he thought about the magic bag. Himuro asked the girl what she meant. Misha said that visually, the magic bag is similar to an ordinary one, but it differs from it in capacity. However, it is quite expensive. But by buying it, the guy will become much more comfortable. Himuro thought about buying it. The guy thinks that buying it for the future would be a good idea. Himuro turned to Mr. Potan and asked if there was a shop nearby where magic bags were sold. Potan replied that yes, of course, but there is one caveat. Himuro asked Potan that something had happened to her. The owner of the tavern replied that no. The quality of things remained excellent. It's just that the owner of this shop is a bit of a peculiar guy. Himuro was a little confused by this, but he went there anyway. The guy quickly found a shop and immediately went into it. He was met at the store by a man who said he was glad to see him in his store. The man asked Himuro if there was anything he could tell him. The guy asked if he had magic bags. The man got up from his chair and replied that yes, of course they are. The seller showed the bags and said that the first one would fit a large axe, a set of armor, and 6 small tables. In the second, a dozen blades, breastplates, and table lamps. And in the cheapest of the series, about 10 bibs will fit. Himuro thought that he wanted to buy a second bag. The guy asked the seller how much these bags cost individually. The man replied that the first bag was worth 14 gold coins, the second was worth 9 gold coins, and the third was worth 3 gold coins. Himuro was upset and thought that they were quite expensive. The guy thought he should save as much as possible. Himuro asked the seller if there was any discount for the 2 medium bags. The seller asked the guy that he would buy 2. Then he decided to ask the guy how about 17 gold coins and 5 silver ones. Himuro asked if he could buy them for 16 gold coins. The seller thought about the guy's offer. The man asked Himuro that maybe then they would play a game. Himuro immediately remembered Potten's story. He told me that the owner of the shop is a big fan of gambling. He invites clients to play with him. Potan exhaled that he hadn't reached him. Himuro asked what kind of game it was. Potan said that he does not know all the details. But in case of a win, the guy buys the product at a significant discount. In case of loss, he has to pay the initial price, only together with the penalty for the loss. The man told the guy that he loves gambling. He asked Himuro if he could play games for a discount. If he wins, the price will remain the same, 18 gold coins. And if Himuro wins, he will sell for 15 coins. And if Himuro wins, he will sell for 15 coins. The man said that gambling is just charming. He can never know if a person will win for sure and ascend to heaven, or if he will lose and fall to the bottom. Even if there is an S-rank traveler against a person, it will not add any advantage to him. The man asked the guy what he would choose. Does she want to give herself to Dallas, the goddess of gambling? Himuro asked the man what his rules were. The merchant took the cubes out of the box and asked what he thought about this game. Himuro realized that these were dice. The man asked that he had seen these things somewhere before. The seller asked the guy to roll the dice at the same time and look at the numbers on the dropped faces. Next, he must sum them up to get a single number. The larger the number, the better. The man asked the guy if he liked this game. The seller decided to give an example, that let's say he got the numbers 5 and 2. In total, he gets 7. If Himuro gets 8 or more, then he wins. These were the rules of the game. Himuro replied that these were simple rules. The man said that the simpler they are, the better. The salesman asked if Himuro wanted to check the dice before throwing. The guy picked up the dice and threw them on the table. Himuro noticed that these bones were indeed ordinary. The seller replied that of course there was no fraud in this. If he doesn't play by the rules, then Himuro will definitely win. He asked which of them would play first. The order doesn't really matter. But he likes to roll the dice second best, so he conceded the right of the first move to Himuro. The guy took the dice and said that he understood everything. He asked the salesman if he could throw dice on the table. The man replied that he could do as he wanted. Himuro replied that he understood everything, so he wanted to get a discount on magic bags. The man said he could roll the dice now. Suddenly, Himuro took the box that originally contained the bones. The man stopped the guy and asked him what he was doing. Himuro replied that he could choose any place on the counter. The guy feels that he can roll the dice well there. The guy threw the dice and he got 2 6s. The guy turned to the seller and said that now it was his turn to walk. The guy noted that he had the same edges. This made the seller very angry, because Himuro revealed the deception of the man. The man thought about his situation for a second, and yet he exhaled heavily. The seller said that Himuro had beaten him, so he will give him a discount. Himuro asked the seller to tell him if he had cheated. The man replied that, yes it is. He said that there are strong magnets in the wooden box. He put pieces of steel in the inner part of the cubes, which are perfectly magnetic. Himuro replied that he knew they were magnets. The man admitted that this was the first time someone caught him cheating. He asked the guy how he found out about it. Himuro replied that the first thing that caught his attention was the movement of the man's hands. The seller asked what he was talking about. Himuro said that when he showed him the dice, he quietly moved the drawer. This small oversight completely caught his attention. In addition, Himuro shared that it was not worth saying that he would win if he cheated on his part. And if visitors find out about the deception, then the man is deliberately surprised and just gives people a discount. This is obviously insurance in case he gets caught. The man replied that he had misunderstood everything. The salesman asked the guy that if there was no clear evidence, what would he do if there were no magnets? The guy replied that he knows how to roll the dice so that he gets the desired number. Therefore, if there was nothing there, then he would just roll the dice as usual. This surprised the man and he asked how this was possible. He asked Himuro not to talk nonsense. You can't do that. The guy asked if he could roll the dice somewhere else. The seller let him do it, and the dice really showed 2 6s. Himuro said that, like he said, he's good at it. After a while, Himuro and Misha came to the Adventurers Guild. Misha went up to Milka and asked the girl to see what a cute magic bag she had. Milka was very surprised and asked Misha how she bought such an expensive thing. Misha replied that Himuro had bought 2 of them, and he had given her 1. The girl was very surprised and asked that Himuro had bought not 1, but 2 bags. Milka asked the guy where he got so much money from. She assumed Himuro was stealing. The guy replied that it was money earned by honest work, so everything was fine. The guys asked the registrar if there were any assignments for rank F today. The girl apologized to the guys and said that they were not there today. Himuro asked Misha what they would do now for the rest of the day. The girl asked for some time to think. Suddenly, someone called out to Milka and asked that they were F-rank adventurers. The girl asked Ginny what was wrong. Ginny asked the guys if they were looking for assignments, if they were ready to take on one. The guys agreed, and they went after Ginny. The girl apologized for disturbing them. The girl told Himuro that a man wanted to meet him. Himuro asked Ginny what kind of errand it was. The girl replied that he would understand everything now. The guys went into a small room in which there was a golem. Ginny asked the guys to meet him. Himuro was slightly surprised. Ginny told me that Mr. Rudo is a golem with his own consciousness. She turned to Rudo and said they were F-rank adventurers. Golems are magical creatures made of earth or clay. But the guy didn't know if there were any more golems with their own consciousness. Golem told the guys that it was nice to meet them. He said that he is the mayor of a village in the Galia forest. He came there to ask the guys for help. Ruto said that recently their village has been attacked by monsters. They literally do not find a place for themselves. Several hundred golems, their comrades, have already been killed. Himuro thought that there were so many dead. The guy asked Ruto why the monsters attacked them. The golem put his hand to his chest and replied that they attacked them because of this. Ruto said that they, the golems, have a core called the Crystal Heart. The core of a golem with its own consciousness is something special. It is said to be an ingredient in a secret potion that strengthens monsters. Himuro asked how many monsters there were in total. The golem replied that there were about 10 of them, but they were so strong that they had no choice but to hide in the forest. The golem took his bag and poured out all the coins on the table. Ruto said that 3 silver, 44x, 2 copper, and 87 small coins were money collected by golems from all over the village. Ruto really asked the guys to help them with this problem. He asked to drive these monsters from their lands. Himuro thought he was offering about 8,000 Japanese yen, but the guy suggested that this was too wild a price for an errand. Suddenly, Misha asked that they could offer them only this. Even though it's exterminating monsters, it's too cheap for their services. Ginny agreed with Misha and said that the reward for such a request should be higher. The girl said that there was not enough money. The guild charges 10% commission on assignments because of this. Adventurers receive less money than they should have. Rudo was very upset and replied that he understood them. He apologized to the guys for disturbing them. Himuro looked at the golem and thought that there were 10 monsters in their lands. The guy suggested that they should definitely be weaker than Zardu. The guy turned to Misha and offered her to take this assignment. Misha and Ginny were very surprised when they heard Himuro's proposal. Misha asked the guy what he was carrying. At least he knows how dangerous it is. Himuro tried to convince the girl that everything would be fine with them and they would cope with this assignment. Besides, they have to help Mr. Rudo. Ginny jumped out of her seat and stopped Himuro. The guys went out into the corridor, and the girl asked that he really wanted to accept this assignment. Himuro replied that he did. The guy asked Ginny if that wasn't what she wanted. The girl replied that she thought the guys would give it up. She figured that if the F-rank adventurer refused him, then maybe he would at least calm down. Ginny said that the administrator's job is to give advice to adventurers. She makes sure that they receive assignments that match their abilities. If she allowed an adventurer to run reckless errands that would cause them to die, then her reputation could go downhill. This assignment is at least for C-rank travelers. It is very difficult and risky, and the guys with the F rank just can't pull it off. Ginny doesn't want to judge Himuro, so she asked the guy to stop. Himuro replied that they would be fine. The guy promised that if they felt danger, they would immediately return. They would not be reckless. Jining was very upset that she couldn't convince the guy. The girl exhaled heavily and reminded them that they would not be paid for it. If they get injured, there won't even be any compensation. Himuro replied that yes, they understand that. Himuro approached Mr. Ruto and said that they were accepting this assignment. The guys went on a mission. Milka approached Ginny and asked that she let them take this assignment. The girl replied that she simply had no choice. They said they would do everything. Ginny said that sometimes there are such daredevils. The girl really didn't want him to die on this mission. The guys entered the forest and walked through it towards the Ruto lands. The golem told Himuro and Misha that they had almost reached the right place. Ruto showed the guys the golem village. Himuro looked around and thought that all the houses in the village had been destroyed. The guy assumed that it was the result of a monster raid. One of the golems came up to the guys and greeted Mayor Ruto. Ruto said that these adventurers are called Himuro and Misha. They came to them to rid the village of monsters. The golems were very happy about the arrival of the adventurers. The commander of the house welcomed the guys to their village. He introduced the other golems, who were called the 40th and 67th. Himuro asked the house why those golems were called that way. Dom said that golems without titles are called by numbers. Himuro was approached by a couple more golems, who looked at the guy carefully. They asked Himuro to play with them. Ruto told the guy that it was 87 and 502. He asked the golems to turn around and walk back. Misha turned to Ruto and asked for forgiveness for the trouble. The girl said that these golems are still babies. She asked that golems also have children. Ruto said that this is how their bodies react to their own consciousness for several years. As the mind and thinking grow, so does the body. Ruto turned to the little golems and said that Himuro and Misha are very busy right now, so they can't play with them. The golems were very upset about this, and they asked why. The little golems left the guys upset, and Himuro noticed it. Himuro turned to Misha and asked her to go play with the guys. The girl agreed. Himuro asked the girl to keep her eyes open when she was playing with them. She's the only one a guy can ask for it. Misha replied that she didn't seem to have a choice. Misha turned to the little golems and told them to follow her. The girl promised that she would show them what real games are. Meanwhile, the monsters were communicating with each other. One of them asked a friend that the golems had returned to the village. He was told that yes, they had just arrived. The monster said they would definitely finish them off next time. The monster said that they would take away every single one of their crystal hearts. They didn't plan on missing any of the golems. Misha was having fun playing catch-up with the guys. At that moment, Himuro was communicating with Ruto. The guy asked if they knew when the monsters would attack them. The golem replied that no. But if the monsters found out that they had all returned to the village, they would immediately attack them. Himuro asked if they could hide somewhere other than the village. Ruto replied that it was impossible. There is a place nearby where clay and other materials from which their bodies are made are mined. They can't just leave this place. Himuro thought about it and looked out the window. The guy asked how many golems there were in the village now. Ruto replied that there were 57 golems in total. After the monsters' attack, there are fewer and fewer of them. Now it's about 1/6 of what it used to be. Ruto admitted that they no longer want to lose their comrades. When evening came, Misha came to Himuro and said that they had played enough. Himuro said she did a good job. Misha admitted that these children are very good. In the future, they will become her rivals. Himuro called out to one of the golems and said that they had made a bed for him. The golem apologized that they had made just such a thing. He asked the guy if he would be comfortable sleeping on it. Himuro replied that everything was fine. He thanked the golem for his concern. Suddenly, Himuro looked at the bed, and Misha was already sleeping on it. The guy was surprised that the girl took his bed very quickly. Misha has already had dreams where she was served a lot of steaks. Himuro exhaled and thought that he would not disturb the girl. After a while, Himuro approached Ruto and asked how they were doing with the village's defensive fortifications. Ruto said that there are watchtowers around the perimeter and in the center where guards are on duty. As soon as they notice the monsters, they will immediately notify all residents. The rest of the golems rest at night. Himuro thought that this was the best strategy so far. If the enemy set up an ambush, then he will use the card that he has already chosen in advance. Ruto bowed to Himuro and thanked him for taking on this assignment. The guy replied that he didn't need to thank them, because they hadn't beaten anyone yet. Ruto said that there are quite a few people who are kind to golems. Ruto admitted that Himuro is a good person. He said that golems were created by humans and monsters. Sometimes golems with their own egos appear. Others see this as only darkness and weakness, and therefore, people like them are simply thrown out. Ruto added that the renegade golems were subjected to various persecutions. Then Princess Liesla passed a decree protecting them from persecution and declaring their immunity. As soon as Himuro heard about Princess Liesla, he was very surprised. Ruto said that since then, harassment by non-monsters has decreased significantly. In addition, the princess allowed them to get together and build their own village. Ruto turned to the village and said they could live there, in this place and nowhere else. All the golems living there stand up for each other like a mountain. That's why Ruto admitted that they don't want to lose their own anymore. The next morning, the guys went outside. Himuro noticed a pair of golems carrying rocks. Himuro asked the golems what they were doing. The guys replied that they were repairing their precious house. The golem said that as soon as the monsters disappear, they will be able to live as before. Himuro watched the coordinated work of the golems, and he decided to help them by taking the stone from one of them. Himuro said they would help them fix the houses. The guys started working together in a coordinated manner. They were able to work fast enough and everyone really liked it. Meanwhile, on the observation deck, one of the golems noticed something. He saw the monsters and very loudly announced it to the whole village. The golems immediately took up their weapons to try to defend themselves from the intruders. One of the monsters asked the golems that they wanted trouble again. The monster asked them to be quiet because they themselves know that nothing will come of it. He asked the golems to hand over their cores as quickly as possible. The golem grabbed his weapon tighter and said that they would never give anything to such as monsters because they were not theirs. Ruto chased them away. The monster called him a baby and said he was wasting their time. The monster said they were attacking golems, but their main task was not to damage the core. The golem tried to attack the monster, but he grabbed it and lifted it up. The monster asked Ruto what he thought. He could get away with it. The monster hit the golem and ordered it to surrender its core. Himuro decided to release the cards at that moment because he really wanted to save the golems from the monsters. The guy chose the card of the descendant of the swordsman Musashi Iori. The girl immediately took up arms and said that the challenge was accepted. She asked Himuro to provide it to her. Iori headed towards one of the monsters. The girl struck with such force that she managed to chop off the monster's arm. Iori struck several more blows at the monster in different parts of its body. Himuro approached Ruto and asked if he was okay, but the golem only moaned in pain. One of the monsters turned to the guys and asked Himuro what a man like him was doing in the golem village. Why is he helping them? The monster asked the guys that they were who they were. Himuro replied that they had come to destroy them. They are adventurers. Iori continued to destroy the monsters one by one. The summoned creature had really impressive strength. The girl could destroy a couple of monsters at once with one blow. Iori was completely inspired to destroy them all. One of the monsters tried to attack Iori, but it didn't work out. The monster was surprised and asked the girl if she could block his attacks. Iori replied that she thought he was the strongest of them all. Iori threw back the monster's sword. He asked the girl if she would have time to read his movements. The monster immediately attacked the girl, but she managed to deflect his blows. The guys fought, and no one wanted to give up. The monster told Iori that she was pretty strong. If the girl was a monster, he would have invited her to them, to Mr. Gilas. This surprised Himuro, and the guy asked the monster that wasn't he the most important among the monsters. He replied that no, Himuro was wrong. He is the commander of the Legion of the First Echelon. He is Mr. Gilas's right 4P Here's Handman. Himuro said he was a double. Himuro asked the monster that he was a military man, so he already knows about Zardu's mystical death. The monster asked the guy that he knew too. He said it was true. Mr. Zardu died at the hands of someone, as well as many legionnaires. The monster noted that despite everything, Mr. Gilas survived, and now he is trying to create a new army. The monster said that if the master gets even stronger, the monsters will get near him, and thus he will become their new ruler. The monster said he was talking about something, but there's nothing wrong with that. He promised that the guys would die right in this place. He created a fireball and sent it straight at them. The monster ordered them to disappear. Ruto was very scared of this, screamed and ran. Himuro asked everyone to stand behind him so that no one would get hurt. The guy released the cards and used the spell card Akoh Aurora Wall. The fireball crashed right into the wall, which helped the guys escape. The monster was very surprised by this. After that, Himuro used a fireball spell card, and he immediately launched it at the monster. Some monsters burned alive after attacking them. The Legion commander thought it was a mage who could use attacking and defensive spells. Besides, he is an excellent swordsman. It was a real hassle for him. Himuro turned to Iori and asked her to finish off this monster. The girl happily said that she would do everything. Suddenly, the monster raised his hands up and said that he was giving up. The monster admitted that he had lost this battle. This step surprised Himuro very much. The monster told the guys that he couldn't beat them. He swears that they won't touch the golems again. Himuro asked the monster that wasn't it up to his boss Gillis to decide. The monster replied that yes, it was, so he would petition him. Himuro looked at Ruto. His opinion was important to him. Ruto turned to the monster and asked if it was true. They really won't touch them anymore. Himuro turned to Ruto to make it clear to the golem that the monster's words might be a lie. The monster replied that yes, they would never return there again. The golem thought for a while, and Himuro waited to see what Ruto would say. The golem told the monster that it was good if that was the case, then they believed them. The commander of the Legion of Monsters turned to his comrades and said that they were leaving there. Himuro turned to the butler and said that he was returning to the capital tonight. The guy promised that he would inform them about the monster's decision. Thus, they will send the royal army to this place. The monster was outraged and asked why they would send an army there. Himuro replied that from now on the army would defend this village. He asked the monster to give it to Gillis like that. The monster replied that it was fine. He would tell them about it. When the guys returned to the golem village, Ruto turned to the guy and thanked him for saving their village. Himuro replied that this was not the end. He feels that they will attack their village again. Himuro told Ruto that he would stay in their village for a while longer. Ruto asked the guy that he would not return back to the capital. Himuro replied that no, he lied to the monsters. He wanted to minimize the chance of them attacking them again. The guy thought that even if he defeated Devorud, as long as there was Hylas, the attacks on this village would not stop for a second. Besides, next time he will come with an even bigger army. The guy was sure of it. When Devaruda returned to Gillas, he told him everything. Gillis asked me to tell you about those adventurers who are in the village. The monster said that the adventurers, as he thinks, protect these golems. Devaruda said that they have a skilled swordsman and a magician, with many tricks up his sleeve, so they wouldn't have a chance. In addition, the royal army of the M country has most likely already arrived in that village. The monster asked Mr. Gillis what they should do in such a situation. Gillis replied that he was very curious. The monster said that he had decided everything. He will move forward with them. Gillis said that their battle with the M army would be legendary. They will crush this village with everything they have. Himuro, meanwhile, stayed in the village, and he oversaw the safety of the golems. Ruto turned to the house and said that he was going to the cave by the waterfall. He needs Dom to look after the village. Dom asked Ruto why he should go to the cave near the waterfall. Ruto asked the house if he remembered how the children used to find a chest there. Dom replied that yes, he remembers it. Ruto shared that there may be precious items in it. Ruto wants to give this to Mr. Himuro as an apology. Last time, they collected too little money for the order. Dom agreed with him and promised that he would look after the village. The golem approached Ruto and said that he would go with him, because he would not carry him alone if he was too heavy. Ruto turned to the 87th and 152nd. He said they were going to the waterfall cave now. Ruto asked them if they could tell them the exact location of the treasure chest they had found. 152 told Ruto that she would go with him. 87 also supported the golem. Ruto told them that they couldn't all go together because the monsters were still roaming around. The guys said that everything would be fine. They would quickly run away from the monsters and hide. Ruto told them that it was fine, but then they shouldn't stray too far from him. The guys went to the cave near the waterfall all together. The kids showed Ruto the place where the treasure they found is located. Ruto looked at the wall and saw that there was a treasure chest of the Naidu civilization. The golems immediately started climbing up to get it. When they climbed up, they immediately opened the chest. Ruto said that everything was fine. It seems to him that these are magical objects. Then they can give them to Mr. Himuro. They can go home. as the golems walked through the forest. Ruto thought that if they sold these things, they would be able to extract a lot of money. The golem assumed that Himuro would be happy. Suddenly, a monster appeared behind the golems and called out to them. The golems turned around and said that this was the monster of the two. The monster asked the golems not to be afraid of him, because he wants to give them something. Ruto asked the monster what he was talking about. The monster replied that he had reported to Mr. Gillis about what had happened in the afternoon. He decided not to attack the village or the golems themselves anymore. The golem was delighted and ran towards the monster, saying that they were friends now. The monster replied that it was. But then he struck at the golem and cut it in half. The monster started laughing and said they had tricked them. He called all golems idiots. Ruto couldn't understand why the monsters did that. Devaruta replied that it was because Mr. Gillis decided to fight the army of the Kingdom of M. More than 200 monsters have already gathered to worship Mr. Gillis. Even if the army is already going to destroy the monsters, they are not a bit afraid. Up to this point, the monsters had said they wanted to have fun with the golems. They promised to destroy their entire village. Ruto immediately turned to the two golems and told them to run as soon as possible. The golems ran, and the two told the monster to catch up with them. The golem ran as fast as he could and thought that he had to warn Himuro as soon as possible. Suddenly, the butler caught up with him and cut off his hand. The monster asked the golems where they were going. Do they really think they can escape from them? Suddenly, the golem ran up to the abyss and did not stop in time. He lost his balance and fell down. The monster came up to the abyss, clucked, and asked where the golem had gone. Ruto was lying downstairs at that moment. He was very badly hurt. Ruto examined his body and saw that his core was damaged. He got to his feet and said that he needed to inform Himuro as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Himuro was trying to shout at Mr. Ruto because he had lost him. A golem ran up to the guy and told Himuro that something terrible had happened. The monsters came to them again. Ruto was walking along a forest path when he suddenly noticed that one of the golems had been captured. It was the 152nd, which was already hanging above the ground in the monster's hand. She told Uncle Ruto that she had been caught. She apologized to him. Ruto was very upset that it happened that way. The monster told Ruto that first he would take the core out of her and then he would get to Ruto himself. The monster asked him to wait. Ruto couldn't bear to watch this, so he used his last strength to ask him to stop bullying them. Suddenly, a spell card, a dark bomb, was pointed towards the monster. She crashed right into the monster's face, but did not hit the 152nd. The monster got very angry, and he and Ruto looked towards the guy. Himuro had already released his cards, and he was fully prepared for the battle. The monster asked that Himuro was the hired magician. He started calling the guy names and ran towards him. Himuro turned to Iori and told her to destroy this monster. The girl immediately struck him several times with her sword. When the monster was destroyed, Himuro asked Iori to return the 152nd. Himuro turned to Ruto and asked if he was okay. The golem replied that it was good that he managed to meet him one last time. Himuro got upset and asked the golem why he was saying that. After all, he's going to cure him now. Himuro chose a recovery spell card. The guy applied it to the golem, but suddenly his eyes widened in fright. The guy realized that the core of the golem is not treated by recovery in any way. The guy started to panic because he didn't think that the recovery spell really didn't work on golems. Himuro tried to try again to restore the golem core, but he failed. The guy thought that maybe it doesn't work because the body is made of earth, not flesh. The guy said they were in a bad way. At that moment, Misha ran up to them, who informed the guy that the monsters had attacked the village. Himuro asked the girl how many monsters had come. Misha replied that she didn't know, but there were too many of them. Ruto turned to Himuro and said that it was useless to save him. He said that the 152nd only has no limbs, they can be attached, and everything will be fine. Ruto said he had a request. He asked to return the village to the rest of the golems. Himuro was very upset that it had happened that way. The guy turned to Iori and told her to take Misha and 152nd to a safe place. And after that, she should, if possible, repel the attack of monsters on the village. The guy promised that he would come to them soon, too. Iori took off and said that she would do everything. Ruto told Himuro to look in the bag. There he had the magical items of the Night Civilization. The golem said that they would definitely give a lot of money for them, so he could take them with him. Himuro agreed with Ruto and thanked him. Ruto held out a trembling hand to Himuro and tried to say something. The golem stuttered and said that he trusted his village and everyone else only to him. The golem's eyes darkened abruptly, and Ruto died. Himuro remained sitting next to the golem's body for a while longer. At that moment, there were fights with monsters in the golem village. The monsters came up to the house and asked that he was another punching bag. They asked to be allowed to have some fun with the house. The house turned to the 36th and asked them to run into the forest as soon as possible, taking the children with them. The golem accepted the order and immediately ran. The monsters asked the golems what they wanted to escape from them so easily. The house replied that he was the commander-in-chief, so the residents were counting on him. He won't let the monsters catch up with the golems. The monsters screamed for the house to die right there. At that moment, Iori appeared, who managed to save the houses. The girl told the monsters that she was very sorry, but today was not their day. The monsters shouted that it was a swordswoman. He turned to the army and said they were retreating. The monsters ran, and Iori began to destroy them all. She hit one of the monsters with her sword and said it was too light. The girl was able to cut this monster into two parts. When the monsters were moving towards the forest, Iori appeared near them. They immediately turned to the girl and were afraid of her. Iori was able to destroy 3 monsters at once with one blow of her sword. The girl asked the other monsters which of them still wanted to say goodbye to their lives. Meanwhile, the golems were trying to find a safe place in the forest so that they would not be found by monsters. They stopped in the lowlands and decided that the monsters would not reach them there. The golem asked the kids if they were okay. The guys replied that they were fine so they could hide from the monsters. Suddenly, a monster came up to them and asked where they were going. The monster said that he knew he had to go after him. It was as if he felt that they wanted to get lost in the forest. The golem was very scared of the monster. At that moment, the butler joined them and asked how they were doing. The guys saw that a friend had come to them. The monster told him that they had surrounded the village and were holding a siege. They would attack soon. The monster replied that he understood everything. He turned to the golems and asked who they were. The monster said they were golems who had escaped from the village. The Varuda told him to deal with them quickly, and after that he returned back to the village. The monster attacked the golems and shouted that they were finished. A weapon was immediately thrown at the monster, which went through its body. Devoroda and the golems saw it all and were very surprised. It was Himuro who went down into the valley and dealt a crushing blow to the monster. The golem was very happy when he saw Himuro. When Himuro was sitting next to the injured Rudo, the guy promised to fulfill the golem's last wish. Himuro said that even though it was enough as a reward for the assignment, he still wanted to do the right thing. The guy put on the bracelet and said that he would not sell it. He promised to take care of the apple of his eye. After putting on the bracelet, Himuro felt an incredible magical power. After that, Himuro immediately went to help the golems. After destroying one of the monsters, the guy adjusted the bracelet. The Varuda looked at the guy and said that he knew that Himuro had not returned to the capital. The monster noticed that the royal army was also a bluff, as befits a small-minded person. Himuro asked the monster that he had killed the 153rd. The Varuda asked Himuro who he was. The guy replied that it was a golem that he had killed in the forest recently. The monster smiled maliciously and said that he was talking about it. Himuro and the golem were shocked when they saw his core. The Varuda said that although it was a small golem, he spent a lot of time on it. He asked the guys to relax and said that even though it was the core of a brat, it definitely wouldn't be wasted. The monster asked the golems to at least thank him, because they benefit from useless idiots like them. So he was sure that even this weakling would be useful. After these words, Himuro struck the monster with his fist. The double bounced into the wall, and the golem was very surprised by the guy's strength. This made the monster very angry, so he called the guy names. Himuro said that he had sent Iori to the village, so that the golems could hide there while they had the chance. The guy said about Devorad that he was his opponent, so he will destroy it here and now. The golems immediately ran towards the village. Himuro grabbed a tree and hit the monster with all his might. Devaruda began to groan in pain, and Himuro continued. The guy kept hitting the monster. Devaruda flew backwards due to Himuro pushing him with his foot. In response, the monster created a fireball that he wanted to throw at the guy. He sent several fireballs at Himuro, but the guy managed to avoid injury. The guy thought that the bracelet significantly improves his physical abilities, so he can fight this monster himself. Himuro realized that it was the power of the bracelet that was left by Mr. Ruto. Himuro was able to run past the already dead monster, snatch the weapon from his body, and strike at the chest of the double. The monster remained alive, and Himuro thought that he had hit too weakly. The guy shouted to the monster that it was the end. The Varuda got very angry and created a huge fireball right above his head. The monster pointed this ball towards the guy and shouted for Himuro to die. The fireball was huge. At that moment, Himuro calmly released the cards and decided which one to choose. The guy chose an item card. The Sword of the Abyss. It is a sword of the element darkness, which increases the wielder's attack power and increases resistance to spell effects. The duration of its action was 6 hours, and the time before reapplication was 12 hours. Himuro managed to hit the fireball with all his might, and he managed to get rid of it. Himuro took out one of the spell cards again. The guy applied the strongest gravity in the monster's area, which is why he was slammed into the ground. The monster was lying on the ground and did not understand what it was. He looked at the guy and started telling him that he was giving up right now. The monster really swore that from now on he would not touch the golems anymore. He tried to sincerely apologize to Himuro and to all the golems. Himuro apologized to the monster and said it was too late. So now he will atone for his sins in hell. Suddenly Himuro changed his mind and said that no, they would accept his apologies only from hell. Because for every crime there comes a reckoning. After a while, Himuro ran towards the village as fast as he could. The guy thought that he had spent some of his precious time on the double, so now he needs to run back as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Iori was trying her best to get rid of the monsters in the village. She was protecting the lives of the golems who stood behind her. One of the monsters came up behind one of the golems and swung his weapon in his direction. But Himuro came to the golem's aid in time, who struck at the monster. The guy managed to save the golem. When Iori saw Himuro, she was glad that her master had come. Himuro asked the golems if everyone was there. The golem replied that no, some had escaped into the forest. Himuro looked at the monsters and thought that there were an awful lot of them. The guy decided that in this case, he should release the next card and seriously fight the army of monsters. The guy summoned a charming sorceress named Rurika. She casts spells and can also control all the elements. Although she looks young, she is actually at least several hundred years old. She is a student of Mito. It was written on Richira's map that her attack would be 100 units, her physical strength would be 1,500 units, her defense would be 900 units, and her magic would be 8,000 units. When Rurika appeared in this world, she rubbed her eyes as if after a dream. Himuro turned to the girl and asked her to defeat all the monsters in the area. The girl looked to the side and saw that several monsters were rushing at her. She asked the guy if he was talking about these monsters. Rurika told the guy that he had given her a very unattractive order. Despite this, the girl raised her staff up and used magic. When the girl's magic rushed up, the whole sky turned black in 1 second. In the next instant, several monsters were severely electrocuted. Rurika was very confident in her abilities, so she said that she would quickly clean up now and spend the rest of the night with the master. The girl pointed the staff at one part of the monsters and launched a magical force at them, which was divided into several parts. The girl managed to use her power to simultaneously pierce through several monsters at once, and after that, the girl directed magic at another monster. But the monster managed to stop the girl's magic blow with a single movement of his hand, so he was not injured. This slightly confused Rurika, and the girl asked that there were only 3 of them. Suddenly, Gillis appeared in front of them, who called Devorad and said that he even made a lousy report. Himuro looked at the monster and thought that the atmosphere around him was clearly different from other monsters. The guy asked the monster if he was the mysterious commander of the first Zardu Legion named Gillis. The monster replied that he was now the former commander of Zardu because he had died. Gillis said that after his death, the army disintegrated. All the military, like traitors, followed the 4 heavenly kings. Gillis held up his hands and said that he was not like them. His strength will not lose to them. The monster was confident that now that he had received the secret power potion, his victory over the kings was undeniable. When that happens, all the monsters will prostrate in front of him. Himuro told the monster that he had killed all the golems just for that. Dilas asked the guy what he meant. When he has incredible power, he can get whatever he wants. He was sure that strength meant absolutely everything in this world. Gillis never doubted for a second that he would gain even more power, and that only he would rule this world. Several more monsters gathered around Gillis, and he threatened the guys that he would first deal with the remaining golems, and with them. Hylas told all his subjects to attack their opponents. Himuro turned to Iori and Rurika and told them to take all the golems away from the battlefield. The guy was really hoping for them. The girls accepted the order and immediately ran to carry it out, running away from Himuro in different directions. On the way, Iori struck one of the golems, but he managed to dodge. The girl noticed that another monster had joined the enemy. After that, both monsters struck at Iori, but the girl jumped back and was not hurt. Meanwhile, Rurika directed her magic power towards Gillis. His subjects managed to put a protection in front of the monster, so the girl's power did not hit him. Hylas said that this is an elite group of warriors with an active potion effect, so they are no match for them. In response to these words, the girls smiled. Rurika mockingly said that it was very cruel because they were being belittled. Iori called the monster a snob and said that Himuro's cards were clearly too much for him. Meanwhile, Himuro found himself in the center of the village where he wanted to release another map. It was a map of an item, Olash, an explosive anthill. He creates 10,000 explosive ants, exploding next to the enemy. They inflict huge damage on the area. It was written on the card of the explosive anthill its duration was 10 hours, and the time before reuse was 15 days. Immediately after the summoning of the card, a lot of ants crawled out of the anthill and spread out towards the monsters. Himuro wondered if these ants understood him. He turned to them and asked them to destroy the monsters and protect the golems. The ant understood the guy's order, so they all went to protect the village. Himuro told the house that they would be safe in this place. They'll just need to sit there for a while. Dom agreed with the guy. Himuro thought that he had dealt with the remaining monsters, so now he needs to destroy the leader of Gillis. He plans to blow it to smithereens. Himuro realized that it was time to punish the monsters with explosive ants. They all immediately pounced on the monsters. At first, the monsters couldn't figure out what they were and how to fight them. They looked at them and tried to understand what danger they could bring. Suddenly, all the ants exploded right next to the monsters. They destroyed them with their self-destruct. Hylas watched as the ants destroyed his monsters. After the explosion, the monsters' bodies fell to the ground without limbs. Gillis laughed a little and told the guys that it was not bad. They were still able to withstand their onslaught. The girls were happy about the destruction of most of the team. Saruka said with a smile on her face that they only had the owner left. Iori asked the monster that maybe he would surrender to them too. Gillis replied so that they would not be arrogant anymore. The monster was sure that these girls were no match for him, even with the effect of the elixir. The claws of the monster appeared from under the armor. Gillas said that now they can stop talking nonsense. He asked the girls to pray while they could still do it, because the monster was going to tear them to shreds with the same hands. The next moment, the monster jumped up from his seat and headed towards the girls. Hylas jumped into the air and swung his arm at them. Gillis dealt them a serious blow, but the girls managed to jump back from the spot and protect themselves from injuries. Iori analyzed Gillis's attacks and thought that he was pretty fast. The girl turned back and saw that the monster was planning to attack her again with its claw-shaped weapon. The monster struck at the girl, and despite the fact that she managed to dodge, he grazed her cheek. Gillis tried to hit Iori, sending a lot of punches in her direction. Running up to Iori, the monster struck at the girl, but Iori was able to repel it with her weapon. Rurika came to Iori's aid, who released magical power from her staff into the monster. Several blows were struck at Gillis, but he managed to dodge them and jump back. Iori continued to deliver many blows, but the monster managed to fend them off. He held out his arms in front of the girl, which were heavily armored. Suddenly, Hylas grabbed the girl's weapon with his claws, and because of this, her eyes widened, because she did not expect this. Gillis swung and struck a very strong blow at the girl. He cut her chest and stomach with one blow. Rurika saw this and began to worry about Iori. At the last moment, Iori gathered all her strength into a fist and grabbed her weapon. The girl hit the monster's leg with all her might. This started to anger Gillis. The monster threw the girl aside for this and called her trash. He threw Iori aside and the girl crashed into the ground. Rurika came to Iori's aid again. The girl used her magic power to lift several boulders into the air and abruptly threw them towards the monster. Gillis managed to jump aside. At that moment, Iori pulled herself together and carefully got up on one knee, holding her stomach. Blood was dripping from her wound. Rurika asked Iori how she was feeling and if she would be able to continue the battle. Iori replied that she was fine. She managed to avoid fatal wounds so she can still continue the offensive. Suddenly, the girl's eyes widened in fear. Iori looked at her hand and noticed that it was starting to disappear. The girl thought that her activation time was about to end. If that's the case, then she decided to act very seriously. At the last second before the attack, Iori called out to Rurika, and Gilos paid attention to this. The girl jumped off the seat and ran around the monster. At that moment, Rurika came to Iori's aid, and she was able to use her staff to create many sharp peaks near Hylas. Gilas was not scared at all, so he asked the girl that she was planning to kill him with this. Hylas was able to cut through the sharp peaks with a single blow with his sword. This action allowed the spikes to explode right in front of the monster, but the explosion did not hit Gilas. Gilas tensed up and asked the girl that it was a trap. He got angry and called Rurika a little mouse. Iori appeared behind Gilas and swung her sword at him, but the monster noticed it in time, so he struck at the girl, cutting her in half. Hylas saw that it wasn't really Iori, but her stone statue. Rurika was very glad that the monster had fallen for their next trick. At that moment, the real Iori was behind the monster's back. When the girl jumped on Gilas, the monster turned and noticed it. The guys collided with each other with swords, which caused Iori's weapons to crack. After a moment, the girl lost her weapon, as it crumbled into many small pieces. Gilas was glad of this turn of events, and he told the girl that she had lost. The monster didn't wait, and he stuck his hand right into Iori's body. The monster's hand went right through. At the last second, Iori was able to grab the monster's arm. Behind Iori was Rurika, who was pointing her staff at the monster. The girls told Gilas that right now he had fallen into their trap. Rurika sent a magical blow towards the monster with all her might. A powerful explosion occurred. Rurika tried to see what was going on inside that smoke and where Hylas was. The monster turned out to be alive, and he was standing right behind the girl, swinging his arm at her. Gilas was very angry. He continued to insult the girls. The monster asked Rurika how they dared to do this to him. The monster struck the girl's back, causing her to scream. At that moment, Himuro came to the girl's aid, who helped Rurika get out of Gilas's hands. At the last moment, Himuro managed to run up to the girl and grab her clothes. The guy turned to Iori and Rurika and thanked them for holding out very well in this battle. The guy said that now was his turn to act. Himuro told Rurika that he would deal with Gilas himself. Himuro did not let go of the girl for a second, even though Gilas was looking at them. Suddenly, the girl's body began to turn pale, so she apologized to Himuro and said that she could no longer continue this battle. The girl disappeared into the guy's tight embrace and turned back into a card. This surprised Gilas very much, and the monster thought that she had disappeared somewhere right before his eyes. The monster asked Himuro that he was a summoner. Gilas remembered that that swordswoman had also disappeared. He asked the guy that he had called them all. It turns out that he is a magician. Himuro replied to the monster that he had indeed summoned them, but he could not. This surprised the monster again, and he asked what the guy meant. Himuro proudly announced that he is a card player. Gilas asked the guy who they were because he had never heard of such a thing. The monster suggested that Himuro could use more powerful spells besides summoning techniques. But still, Gilas admitted that he was too sorry to waste such a talent. Gilas turned to Himuro and asked if he would like to become his ward. After all, he would have to fight the 4 heavenly kings in the end, and he needs brave wards for such a serious battle. The monster was sure that Himuro's power would be very useful to him. Himuro asked the monster what the benefit was for him. Gilas replied that in that case he could get money and women. The monster promised that when he becomes the new king, Himuro will be able to get as much as he wants. But Himuro did not even hesitate to reply that he refused the offer. This answer made Gilas very angry. Himuro told the monster that he didn't think it was a good deal. The guy reminded the monster that he would never forgive him for what he had done to the golems. Gilas got angry and said that if Himuro had made a decision for himself, then he should die, right here and now. Himuro's eyes widened, because Hylas attacked him very abruptly and unexpectedly. The monster hit the ground right next to the guy. Himuro noticed the monster's claws right next to his face. Hylas struck again with a powerful blow which sent stones flying in all directions. Himuro flew backwards and stopped on the ground. The guy said he needed to use the cards. Himuro chose a spell card. These are 6 elemental arrows. The guy immediately aimed all those arrows at the monster. Hylas saw that arrows were flying at him, so he decided to act too. The monster drew a cross on the ground from which magical power began to come out. Gilas raised his hand up, and a huge stone block grew out of the ground, which was able to save Gillas from Himuro's arrows. After that, Himuro himself struck at the monster with a sword, but Gillas managed to put out his arm with armor on it. When Himuro saw that a weapon was flying towards him, he tensed up. Gillas hid right next to the guy, but Himuro managed to fly back, so he was not hurt. After Gillas missed the guy again, he asked Himuro what was wrong with him. The monster admitted that he had more fun with that girl than with him. Himuro looked at his sword and noticed that there were severe cracks on it. The guy realized that his sword was about to break. Right at that moment, Gillas ran towards the guy again. Himuro decided to use the cards. The guy chose an item card. It's a Seraphim Spear. It was a spear of the light element. It increases the attack power of the wearer and imposes a healing effect. Its duration is 5 hours, and the time before reapplication is 14 days. Himuro immediately threw the Seraphim Spear towards the monster. The spear crashed into Gillas, but he managed to put his hand out in front of him. The spear struck the monster's protective armor, but he still felt its power. Gillas threw the spear towards the guy and told Himuro not to underestimate him. The spear spun in the air several times, but then Himuro caught it with his hand. At that moment, Gillas thought that Himuro could summon spells, so he could also get weapons. The monster couldn't figure out who was really standing in front of him. Gillas asked the guy what his name was. He replied that his name was Himuro Kanata. Gillas immediately plunged into memories when he was chatting with another guy. The guy told the monster that he wouldn't come to him after all. Gillas replied that he was not alone. He was not going to serve any of them. The guy exhaled sadly and said he was sorry. He asked Gillas to take care of himself. The guy turned away from the monster and went to the exit. Gillas stopped the guy and asked him to wait because he needed to ask him something. The monster asked that Lord Zarda was really not killed by them, the Heavenly Kings. The guy replied that no, it wasn't them. However, the guy decided to tell him everything. Mirik says that Zarga was defeated by an alien. Eulis asked the guy who exactly he was talking about. The guy said that it was obvious to all of them that he had abilities for magic and spells that he could not control yet. The guy reported that this otherworldly man's name was Himuro Kanata. Recalling this conversation, Gillas laughed. The monster told Himuro that he understood everything now. His name is Himuro Kanata. Gillas gathered all his strength into a fist and said that it was good. He recognized in him the name of a strong man who needed to be defeated urgently. So now he's going to fight a lot more seriously. An egg formed in Gillas's fist, which began to crack. Noticing this, Himuro began to get very nervous. A huge shadow appeared directly above the guy, and Himuro was slightly afraid of it. A huge dragon appeared behind Gillas. The monster told the dragon of the Cemetery of Antiquity to obey his orders. Gillas told the guy that he should be flattered by what was happening now. After all, this dragon was his trump card in the battle against the 4 Heavenly Kings, which he was preparing for later. The monster said that he had summoned this dragon, so now the guy can expect no mercy. Gillas promised to destroy Himuro without leaving a single speck. Himuro decided to call up one of the cards again. It was a summoning card, Forvsh, a heavenly dragon. Because of this, Gillas began to get very nervous. A sky dragon of enormous size appeared right behind Himuro's back. Now the dragon will fight against the dragon. Hylas tensed and thought that Himuro had just summoned a dragon. The monster assumed that it was with this trump card that he defeated Mr. Zarda. Himuro turned to the heavenly dragon and asked him to destroy the enemy dragon. The information was written on the card of the heavenly dragon that it has an attack of 5,000 units, physical strength of 7,000 units, protection of 7,000 units, and magic of 4,000 units. His abilities are regeneration. The heavenly dragon deals huge damage with a unit of the element darkness. The time to reapply it is 15 days. It is said that 20 brave men died from his paws. Himuro realized that he had surprised Gillas with this call. The 2 dragons engaged in battle with each other, and Himuro headed towards Gillas. The 2 dragons collided with each other and growled viciously. Himuro attacked Gillas with his sword. The monster looked at the guy and thought that in order for such a brat to summon a huge dragon, it takes a lot of strength. So Gillas was sure that this was the only trump card up Himuro's sleeve. Himuro attacked the monster with a sword, and Hylas himself deflected the blow with his claws. Next, Himuro released the spell card again, and it turned out to be an enchanted crystal spear. The spear was aimed directly at Gillas, so he was thrown away by the blast wave. This made the monster very angry. and he gained strength to attack Himuro. The guy took off and rushed towards the monster. Gillis jumped back and thought irritably that he was wondering where he got such powers from. At that moment, the dragons continued to fight each other, but something went wrong. The paw of the dragon of the cemetery of antiquity fell behind Gillis, and the heavenly dragon did it. Hylas looked at the dragon of the cemetery of antiquity and thought that its might had just been broken. This angered the dragon of the cemetery of antiquity, and he ran towards the heavenly dragon to strike at it. At that moment, the heavenly dragon released a pillar of fire from its mouth directly at its opponent. From this, the dragon began to growl very strongly. The dragon of the cemetery of antiquity died after being destroyed by a heavenly dragon. Gillis got angry, and Himuro told the monster that he was just unlucky this time. The guy said that if he had caught up with him much earlier, at the time when he first appeared in this world, the monster would definitely have killed him with ease. The guy admitted that it was then that he was in a very vulnerable position. The monster did not like this, and he asked Himuro what vulnerable position he was talking about, because the guy had defeated the great Zarda. Himuro replied that yes, it is. Only the spell he used to finish him off is still in the rollback, so only in this moment is luck on his side. Gillis was very surprised by the guy's words, and thought that he was talking about the spell that killed Mr. Zarda. So this heavenly dragon is not really the guy's trump card. Gillis asked Himuro why he was telling him all this. Himuro replied that it was not difficult for him to do so. Besides, he won't change his mind. The guy remembered what he had promised Ruto in the last minutes of his life. Himuro confidently informed Gillis that he would definitely defeat him here and now. The guy released the card again, and this time it was a spell card. Oh, Mas, the 5 Angels of War. It was written on the map that it was a unit of the Light faction. After the call, they immediately attack the target. It is forbidden to use new spell cards during the day after using this card. The time to reapply it is 21 days. The Angels of War immediately began to attack Gillis. The angels struck at the monster one by one. One of the angels managed to drive a sword straight into the monster's body. The angel struck directly at Gillis's head. It was the girl's sword, which she stabbed into the monster's forehead. After that blow, Hylas fell to the ground, and blood began to gush from his body. But Hylas was still alive. He opened his eyes and bared his teeth. After that, he gathered all his strength and jumped off the spot. The monster called Himuro names and ran towards him to strike. Despite this, Himuro was completely calm. At the last moment, Himuro held up a sword in front of him, which went through Gillis's body. Blood began to gush out of the monster's mouth. Himuro managed to destroy Gillis. Himuro turned to Mr. Ruto and said that he had fulfilled his promise to him. Himuro realized that the battle with Gillis was over, but at the cost of Ruto's life. The entire village was destroyed even more than before after the battle. Himuro brought Ruto's body to the village so that all the other golems could say goodbye to him. The guy gathered all the golems in the village and put Ruto in the middle. Dom approached the guy and asked him not to get upset so much, because he managed to save many other golems. Himuro was pleased that the house supported him. Himuro said they would never be able to forget Ruto's feat, and his efforts to save the village would be legendary. Himuro asked Dom what they were going to do next. The house replied that they would do the same thing. They will choose a new head and live the same way as before. Dom said that they would repair their bodies after the attacks of monsters, build houses that were destroyed. They will keep everything that Ruto has been so diligently protecting. The golems thanked Himuro and Misha for helping them find peace in their native village. The golems promised that they would never forget the adventurers. The guys said goodbye to each other, and Himuro and Misha went home. They arrived in the capital and immediately headed to the Adventurers Guild. The guys told Ginny everything. Ginny was very saddened to hear that Mr. Ruto had died. Himuro said the assignment was completed by his deputy, Dom. The guy hoped that Ginny was not against it. The girl replied that it was fine, there was no problem. Ginny said they did a great job on this assignment after all. The girl admitted that, to be honest, she thought they would run away from this task. Himuro replied that there were indeed quite a few monsters that threatened the village, but thanks to the help of golems, they somehow coped with these difficulties. Misha told Ginny that they wanted to take on another assignment, but the girl preferred that they were given a task without any horrors. Ginny thought about it and replied that they didn't have any F-rank missions yet. Misha was very upset about this. Ginny replied to the girl that they couldn't do anything about it because there were very few F-rank assignments. The girl noted that if the guys want to take on assignments more often, then they should be adventurers of the E rank. This made Misha very happy, because she remembered that there was going to be a rank promotion exam very soon. The girl promised that this time they would definitely pass. Suddenly, Ginny replied to Misha that if she was talking about the promotion exam, then it had already ended this morning. Misha got even more upset and screamed at the whole guild. Misha and Himuro went outside, and the girl said that they had missed the promotion once again. Himuro replied that it looks like it will be held again next month, so next time they will definitely be able to pass it. Misha replied that yes, it is. They will definitely turn him in next time. Misha told the guy that she was very embarrassed that she took his entire fee. The girl asked Himuro if he was angry with her. The guy replied that, no, that's all right. Himuro showed the girl his hand and said that he had this bracelet as a souvenir from Rudo. The guy was sure that he would certainly be able to get a lot of money for it, but he didn't want to sell it at all. The guy admitted that this bracelet is very important to him, as a reminder of Ruto. Misha replied that she understood everything. She was sure that Rudo would have been happy that Himuro was treating his gifts so well. Misha told the guy that she would treat him to food today. The girl invited Himuro to go with her to the three-way tavern. Himuro agreed with the girl without hesitation. Meanwhile, night had fallen, and a group of heavenly kings had gathered in a small, ruined building. Gurga came to the other guys and apologized to them for making him wait. 3 heavenly kings were already present in the hall, and Gurga said that everyone was present, and that was good. GLaDOS told Gurgu that he was late as usual. He's pretending to be a human offspring again. Another heavenly king named Nufutus said that they should stop talking nonsense. He asked Gurg to name the purpose of their convocation, for which he had gathered them. The heavenly queen named Desaris told Gurgu that he must have wanted to tell them something very important, since he summoned her to this hole. The girl asked him what he found out. Who killed Zarda? Gurgu replied to Darius that she had guessed correctly. The girl asked if he was serious. They were very curious about who it was. Gurga asked Desaris to calm down, and he said it was better for the girl to ask someone who was there. The guy turned to the side and told the invited guests to get out. It was Mirik, who was present during the battle of Zardu and Himuro, and saw everything with her own eyes. Desaris asked Morik that she had survived the battle. GLaDOS said that she had always been on the side of Master Zardu. In other words, she had escaped after failing to deal with his enemies. Mirik was very embarrassed by this, and the girl was ashamed of her act. Gurga asked everyone present to keep their voices down, because the first priority is the truth in this matter. The guy turned to Marika and asked her to tell everyone everything she saw at that battle. Mirik awkwardly replied that it was fine. She would tell them everything. The girl began the story by saying that Mr. Zarda was killed by a strange alien. This is someone named Himuro Kanata. Everyone present was very surprised by what the girl told them. Mirik said that this guy had black hair, and he was presumably a young boy. This guy summoned a lot of undead, some kind of mechanical robonoids, and attacked them all. GLaDOS was very impressed with this information, and he asked Mirik once again that some summoner had killed Mr. Zarda. The girl replied that it was probably not just a summoner. Mirik said that the spell that killed Zarda was high back of label and very powerful. She had never seen such in her life. He used it without any foreplay. GLaDOS asked the girl that he had used this spell without any foreplay. He couldn't figure out if such a person even existed. Nefutus said that this guy can just use high-level spells and summon the undead, so he was sure that they definitely had no reason to worry about it. Desaris reminded Nefutus that this spell had killed Zarda somehow. Nefutus replied that he remembered it. Nefutus remembered that Zardu had a lot of power. That's probably why he was so careless about the Otherworlders. Nefutus was sure that he was not like Zardu. Underestimating was not his destiny. So he's going to fight this Otherworlder in full force. GLaDOS agreed with Nefutus, and he said that no matter how strong he was first of all, a human being. And people usually have a fragile body. Desaris told the guys that, for the sake of the whole ethnic group, it would be better if Zardu stayed alive. Not only them, but also other monsters would be able to make their move. Suddenly, Gurga told the guys that this was not all. The guy said that there would definitely be conflicts between countries. So far, they have been cooperating with each other because of Zardu. However, from now on, this will no longer happen. The guy noticed that they were all as greedy as they were. Then the guy corrected himself and said that they were even more greedy. So the guy was sure that something terrible was going to happen. Gerda said with a smile on his face that a lot of blood would be shed. The guy admitted that just imagining it, he was already getting excited. The guy had a malicious smile, anticipating something bad. Meanwhile, Himuro and Misha came to the Adventurers Guild, and Milka suggested that the guys go to explore the dungeon. Himuro was slightly surprised by this, and he asked the girl to tell him more about it. Milka replied that this assignment came from Mr. Basil, a merchant in the capital. He recruits 100 adventurers to explore a newly discovered dungeon. The girl also said that mostly adventurers below D rank are going to this task, but Himuro and Misha will also be able to keep them company. Himuro asked Milka why adventurers below D rank were going on this mission. The guy assumed that it must be dangerous there. Milka replied that Mr. Basil had already hired B-rank adventurers who had conducted research on the lower level of the dungeon. According to their reports, there are no dangerous monsters there. Himuro thought about completing this task, and the guy felt better after Milka's words that there are no dangerous monsters in this dungeon. The guy decided that then he could take Misha, and everything would be fine with them. Misha turned to Himuro and confidently said that she wanted to accept this assignment. Himuro agreed with the girl, and they decided to go on this assignment. The guys immediately went to the place that was indicated in the task. Himuro looked around and told Misha that according to the map, this was the place. Suddenly, Misha pointed her finger at a group of guys and asked Himuro to look there. There were a lot of adventurers standing there, ready to go to explore the dungeon. Himuro looked at the guys and thought that all these people were adventurers who took on this mission. Suddenly, Himuro's eyes stopped on a familiar face. It was Renee. The girl was very happy that she had met Himuro. Renee ran up to the guy and said that it was a surprise to her that she met a guy in this place. The girl asked Himuro that they had also taken this assignment. Renee gave Misha a friendly push and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Misha agreed with Renee and also greeted her. Renee asked Himuro about the fact that he is still F rank. The girl was sure that the guy needed to take the exam for promotion as soon as possible. The girl feels that he will quickly get to B rank. Himuro replied to Renee that no. Unfortunately, he had already missed it. After that, Himuro saw Zack and Moore. They greeted each other. The guys were happy to see each other, so they started talking. Suddenly, the guy called out to everyone present and said that everyone should look at Himuro and Misha. The guy asked if the F-rank trash was also involved in their company. Himuro immediately realized that he was talking about him, and it confused him a little. The guy asked that they would be paid the same as everyone else, with a much higher rank. He sarcastically apologized to Himuro and said that their mediocrity would only get in their way. This made Renee very angry, so the girl told Dude to stop talking to them like that. The girl asked Uda who gave him the right to communicate with the guys from the unified team in this way. Ud replied that if they dragged him to the bottom, he would kill them. He called the guys gentlemen of F rank and asked them to take care of themselves. Renee and Himuro followed the guy with disapproving glances. Renee was very angry. The girl told Himuro that she was sure that he was much stronger than Uda, but Himuro did not take offense at him at all, and he tried to calm Renee down, saying that nothing terrible had happened and he was fine. Himuro looked at Uda and thought that he was a D-rank adventurer or something like that. He can throw out anything. So the guy decided he better keep an eye on him. A man addressed the guys and told everyone present that everyone had gathered, so they could start. The man introduced himself as the initiator of this assignment named Basil. Basil told a group of adventurers that they would now descend into the bowels of the dungeon to explore it. The purpose of their expedition is to find the treasures in it. One of the adventurers decided to ask Basil if there was a chance that there was no treasure there. The man replied to the adventurer that yes, there is such a possibility, but there are also chances for their common success. Basil also said that if they didn't find the treasure, they would pay them once, and thus they will be able to calmly focus on the search. But if the adventurers find a good treasure, they will pay them extra, and it would be nice if they found something very expensive. The man said that this was the end of the research instructions, so he could give the floor to Aluto. It was a B-rank adventurer that Basil had hired, so he asked all the guys to listen to him carefully. Aluto introduced himself to everyone present as a magical warrior and said that he was pleased to meet everyone. The guy said that he would act as a coordinator for them all. Aluto said that when he explored the dungeon, there were no dangerous monsters in it. However, the guy admitted that he did not know what could await them ahead, so the guy asked all the adventurers to be extremely careful in this dungeon. The guys came to the entrance to the dungeon, and Aluto said that now they can go inside. He asked all the adventurers to follow him strictly. The guys went inside, and everyone began to look around. The guys walked through a small tunnel, and after that Aluto led them to the right place. The team went out into a large hall in which a huge magic circle was drawn. The guys did not expect that they would see him in the dungeon. Aluto said that if they use this magic circle, they will be able to move into the very depths of the dungeon, so they can all go inside the magic circle. When all the guys got inside, Aluto folded his arms and said they were starting to move them. The boundaries of the magic circle illuminated the large hall, and the guys began to move in space. After a while, the team of adventurers found themselves deep in the dungeon. They continued to be inside the magic circle. Everyone started to wonder that they were already inside the dungeon. The adventurers believed that nothing had changed around them at all. Suddenly, Renee was very scared because she noticed a huge egg above her, which was fixed with a lot of threads. The girl asked what it was. All the people also looked up, and they were surprised by what they saw. No one understood what kind of egg it was. They turned to Aluto and asked what it was. But the adventurers noticed that the guy was not there. One of the adventurers asked what the egg was, and he was told that yes, it is. The man said that this egg is far from ordinary. A monster is about to hatch out of him. All the guys were even more surprised because no one understood where this voice was coming from. Everyone assumed it was Basil, but no one understood where it was. The girl was very scared of this egg, and she asked the team why they were sent there. The girl was told that everything was very simple. Aluto and he are the persecutors of the great teaching of Carius. Surprised, Zack asked what he was saying about a follower of Carius. It scared him a lot. Himuro asked Renee what they were talking about and what kind of Carius. The girl replied that it was a dangerous sect that was banned all over the continent. She preaches that you can kill people in the name of achieving what you want and other stuff. Ud got angry and shouted that they didn't know anything about the occultists of Carius. He asked Aluto what this had to do with him. Aluto was surprised that the adventurers didn't know anything about it, and the guy replied that then he would briefly explain everything to them now. The guy said that from now on, they would all be sacrificed to this egg. Himuro realized that this assignment, which was taken by about 100 people, turned out to be a trap for low-ranking adventurers. The guys got very angry and they asked what it meant that they would be sacrificed. They were wondering if they were being joked about, because no one could figure out what was really going on. Aluto said that this egg contains a lot of valuable ingredients. There's the heart of a black giant, the bone of a 1,000-year-old dragon, the eyeballs of a kraken, the tail of a Cerberus, and many other elements. Aluto also said that, among other things, there is Mr. Zardu's blood in this egg. When Himuro heard Zardu's name, he was very surprised. Aluto continued and said that nevertheless, they are missing several important ingredients. Aluto said that he meant ingredients like fear and despair, so they invited the adventurers to the dungeon just for that. Aluto promised all the guys that they would die feeling only these sensations, and all their blood, flesh, souls, all this will become part of their greatest monster. However, Aluto said that fear and despair can only be planted in hearts when there is hope, and that's why he gives it to them. Ud was very angry, and he asked Aluto what other hope he was telling them all about. Aluto said that there is a way out of this dungeon, but there is only one. Only 10 people will be able to pass through it, and for the rest this door will be closed. Himuro listened to all the conditions from Aluto, and said that it turns out that in order to survive, he needs to find this door before all the other adventurers. One of the adventurers turned to a girl named Mora, and asked her that if she was a sorceress, could she get out of this magic circle? The girl was very upset, and she replied to the guy that it was actually useless, since this magic circle was intended only for the exit. There is a spell on the egg itself that protects it from magic and physical attacks, so the girl does not think that they will be able to destroy it. In other words, they can only look for a way out. All the adventurers were scared by the circumstances, and everyone decided how they would act. Himuro thought that if Basil was telling them the truth, then logically, everyone who could find a way out of the dungeon would most likely call for help. So most likely he lied about the fact that there is actually a way out. Or else he was sure that he would not lose sight of anyone, and would not allow anyone to leave this dungeon. Suddenly, one of the adventurers went to the exit of the hall and told the rest of the guys that there was a staircase. The adventurers approached her and asked what they would do in such a situation. One of the guys replied that no matter what they did, their ranks would still thin out. The adventurers thought about it and said that they would have to climb these stairs anyway. One of the adventurers noticed that there was another passage above the stairs. They wondered what was there. When they entered this passage, they all found themselves in a huge hall. Himuro was very confused by this room. The guys were very surprised that there were many doors in the hall, and anything could be waiting for them behind them. The adventurer asked the guys that now they would need to find a way out in a room with many doors. It was impossible for him to do that. Himuro decided to open one of the doors and enter the room behind it. There they saw a long corridor with several more doors. Himuro said that he understood everything. One of the adventurers got angry, because he didn't understand why everything was happening the way it was. He suggested that the rest of the adventurers try to open other doors, in case the situation there would be different. The guys began to open one door after another, but the same picture awaited them behind them. The adventurer got angry and said that they were all the same. The guy did not understand what they should do now, because it would take them forever to find a way out. One of the adventurers suggested that everyone else split up so that they could find a way out faster. But after his words, the guy got hit on the shoulder. Himuro's eyes widened in fear. He did not expect to see this. The guy who suggested that everyone split up was cut in two with a sword. Aluto stood behind Leon with a sword in his hand. Comrade Aluto was very scared because he saw the death of a close friend. Aluto came out of the door where the guy was standing and addressed all the adventurers. He said with a sinister smile on his face that there were now 99 people left. Misha and Himuro tensed up. They did not expect that the extermination of the adventurers would begin so soon. Leon's friend immediately ran up to the body and prayed that he would wake up. The guy realized that it was useless for him to do this, because he was already dead. Ud started calling Aluto and calling him various insults. The guy said he would kill him as soon as he met him. One of the adventurers asked Uda to calm down. The guy asked that he had forgotten that Aluto had a B rank, so he couldn't handle him. Himuro sat down next to Leon's body and thought about how Aluto would gradually reduce the number of participants. Suddenly, the guy heard a loud female scream, and he abruptly turned back. One of the adventurers held the girl's body in his arms and asked her to wake up. There was a sword wound on the girl's body, which became fatal for her. The rest of the guys immediately ran up to them and began to find out what had happened to them. Chiron replied that he and Amy were checking the doors, when suddenly the bastard Aluto jumped out of one and hit her with a sword. The girl checked Amy's condition and realized that it was useless to do anything with her, because she was already dead. The guy started to get angry at this and said that if he had been a little more attentive to the situation, this would not have happened. Himuro immediately suspected something was wrong. The guy carefully examined Amy's body and turned to Chiron. The guy asked that he had killed Amy. This question greatly angered all the guys who heard Himuro. Chiron was outraged by Himuro's question and asked what he was talking about. They worked in tandem, so the guy asked Himuro to stop talking such nonsense, because it's just impossible. Himuro, in turn, asked everyone present to look at Leon's wound. It had a completely smooth mark caused by a terribly sharp blade. The guy asked to look at Amy's body and he noted that her wound was torn, as if someone was in a hurry. So it was obvious to Himuro that it had been inflicted by another weapon. Himuro looked at Karen and said that his blade looked quite old. It clearly had notches on it. And when a jagged sword cuts through flesh, it leaves lacerations. Everyone was shocked by the arguments Himuro had given them against Karen. No one could believe that he was capable of this. Chiron tried to stop the guys, and he asked that they all doubt him too. The adventurer asked Chiron to give him his blade, and he would check it just in case. Suddenly, Chiron changed his mood and told the guys that they finally understood what was happening. The guys realized that something terrible was about to happen. Chiron swung with all his might and hit the adventurers, but they managed to dodge and were not injured. The adventurers were very outraged by Chiron's behavior. The guy sarcastically apologized to them for this situation and said that Basel would pay him 100 silver coins for destroying their miserable lives. Chiron ran towards one of the doors, but the adventurers assured the guy that now he could not escape from them. They gave instructions to grab the guy. Suddenly, someone threw a blade towards Chiron, which hit the guy in the back. Himuro's eyes widened in surprise. Chiron, with a blade in his back, turned back and saw that Ud was running at him. He laid Chiron on the ground and collapsed on top of him, so that the traitor would stay in place. Ud swung his blade and told Chiron that he would never run away from him. The guy started trying to calm Uda down because they wanted Chiron to admit his mistake first and tell them the important details. But despite the persuasions of the other guys, Kieran stabbed his blade right into the guy's eye with all his might. None of the people could have expected that you would brutally stab the blade over and over again, killing Kieran. The adventurers looked at it with their mouths open. Everyone was surprised by the cruelty of the Uda. At one point, Himuro stopped Uda's hand right in the air, preventing him from continuing to strike. This made Uda very angry, and the guy asked what he wanted from him. He called Himuro an F-ranked gentleman and asked what the guy was trying to do to him. Himuro replied that he'd had enough of hitting Kieran since he was already dead. Ud pulled his hand out of Himuro's and looked at the guy thoughtfully. Ud moved away from the guys so as not to aggravate the conflict. The adventurer said that he could not even imagine that there would be a traitor in their ranks. He told Himuro that the guy recognized him well and told them everything about the facts. Himuro told the guys that he was worried about one fact. This assignment required the help of 100 adventurers. However, in fact, when counting, there were a few more people there than planned. That is why Himuro came to the conclusion that among them there are probably spies recruited by the occultists of Carius. The guy replied to Himuro that he hadn't even noticed it, but now, in any case, there were no traitors left among them. Suddenly, Himuro replied that he would not agree with him on this. The guys asked the guy what he meant. Himuro said that at the first count, he counted only 104 adventurers. Zack asked Himuro what he meant by saying that there were traitors left among them. Himuro replied that yes, it is. 3 more people may be traitors. The adventurers were very tense due to the fact that only 10 people would be able to pass this test. In addition, they had a problem with the fact that Basil hired thugs. At this point, the remaining 101 people began to look for traitors. Himuro turned to the adventurers and said that he did not know who they were. Wo-Pio, believers in Carius, or assassins hired for money. But they had one goal. Wo-Pio, Wilkio, to kill all of them unnoticed. All the adventurers started looking at each other to try to spot the enemies. The guy started shouting at the traitors and asking where they were and what their names were. But he was told that he was a fool, because that way they would definitely not tell any information about themselves. The guy said that as long as the traitors are nearby, they will not be able to work together. The guys wanted Ludo to be here. Yu turned to the adventurers and said that it didn't matter if there were traitors among them or not. As long as they consider other people to be enemies, then they will be safe. Ud said that only 10 people will be able to get out of there, so trying to save the doomed is a pointless activity. The guy said that he was not going to participate in this. He called out to Tatos and said they could go. Tatos and Ud turned to one of the doors and went to look for a way out of the dungeon. The guys began to think over Ud's words and say that he was actually right. The guys decided that they needed to work with those whom they could trust with absolute confidence, and they will have to consider the rest as their enemies. They also decided that everyone needed to escape before the egg hatched. The guys began to divide into teams and separate themselves from the bulk of the people. Each group really wanted to find a way out before the others. Zack turned to all the guys and asked them to wait. The guy said that the traitors are just trying to get them all divided into small groups. Renee replied to the guy that apparently they were more afraid of a sudden attack by traitors than Aluto. Himuro counted the adventurers who remained single and thought that there were quite a lot of them. The guy counted 32 people in total. One of the guys raised his hand and asked those present to listen to him. The guy introduced himself and said his name was Ark and he was a D-rank adventurer. He had an idea, and the guy would like to share it with her. Ark said that he proposes to divide everyone into 4 groups. 2 of them will explore the dungeon, and the remaining groups will alternate between duty and rest. That is, they will take turns doing it. The girl noted that it would be much more difficult for traitors to attack people in a group than the 8 scattered ones. The guy said that even if there were traitors among them, the people standing guard would not allow bloodshed. Himuro thought about the guy's words. Ark told me that the groups that find a way out will return back to the city and demand to send help for the rest of the remaining adventurers. The guy asked the others how they had this plan. The guys started responding that they thought they wouldn't have a problem with it. Ark said it was good, then they could split up into groups. Suddenly Himuro raised his hand and said that he wanted to go separately. Ark was very surprised by this. The guy asked why he chose such a decision. Himuro turned to Misha and asked her to stick with Renee and the others. Ark told Himuro to wait a bit and exhale. The guy reminded that if he went separately, Iluto would immediately overtake him. Ark asked if he really wanted to become a simple target. Himuro replied that yes, that is his goal at the moment. Himuro tried to convince the other adventurers that he would defeat Iluto before he killed anyone else. After these words, the guy went into one of the doors. Ark was very tense after Himuro's confession. He excitedly said that he was F-ranked, so Iluto was too much for him. Renee went up to the guy and said that he would be fine for sure. She was sure of it. The girls said that it was Himuro Katana, so she was sure that he would cope with this task. Meanwhile, Himuro found himself in a long corridor with many doors. The guy decided to release one of the cards. This card turned out to be a loyal combat maid, Mia. The girl appeared in this world and asked Mr. Himuro that he needed her help again. Himuro told Mia about everything that happened to the 100 adventurers. The girl replied that she understood everything now. She realized that the first thing she needed to do was defeat Iluto. Himuro replied that yes, in case of delay, there would be more casualties among the adventurers, so they had to hurry up. The guys opened one of the doors and carefully looked into the room. Himuro was very tense because they saw several corpses on the floor of the room, but their injuries were different than at the hands of Iluto. Mia asked Himuro that he had killed them. The guy carefully examined the wounds and said that no, he did not do it. The guys realized that someone else was in the room with him at that moment. It was a huge spider that was watching the guys from around the corner. As soon as Himuro turned and looked at the monster, the spider immediately attacked him. Mia joined the battle, who with the help of her weapon was able to chop off the spider's paw. Himuro thought about what it meant that Iluto had lied when he told them that there were no dangerous monsters in this dungeon. Himuro and Mia saw that there was not one spider in the room, but several at once, and they all focused on the guys. Mia took off and rushed towards the monsters. Himuro shouted after the girl not to worry about him, so she had to defeat all these monsters. Mia replied that everything would be done. Mia cut one of the spiders in two with a sharp movement of her hand. After that, she plunged her blade into the spider's face. Mia told Himuro that she felt like these monsters didn't have much power. The girl easily coped with monsters. She destroyed one of them by jumping at him from a height and plunging a blade into his belly. Standing on the spider, the girl saw that his relatives were running at her. After that, the girl was able to destroy several monsters at once with one blow of her weapon. When Himuro saw that a spider was attacking him, he immediately released one of the cards. It turned out to be a card of an object. A blade made of holy water. It was written on the map that it was a blade of the element of water. Its blade is able to change its shape depending on who controls it. Its duration is 24 hours, and the time before hours and the time before reapplication is 18 days. Himuro struck at one of the monsters that attacked him. He then destroyed 2 more spiders with one blow. When all the monsters were destroyed, Mia said that they were weak enough by themselves. But when there are so many of them, they begin to cause a lot of inconvenience. Himuro walked over to the corpses of the monsters and looked at them carefully. The guy noticed that these spiders almost do not differ from each other in appearance and size. The guy suggested that they could be cubs. Himuro said that if this is really the case, then their business is bad, because there may be a spider nearby. Himuro decided to release the card, and Mia asked the guy that he wanted to summon another warrior to help. Himuro replied that yes, they need to try to reduce the number of monsters in the dungeon and protect Renee and the rest of the guys. At that moment, Renee was standing in the room and looking at a huge spider. This spider was the mother of the spiders that Himuro and Mia had just destroyed. The guys said that they thought there would be no monsters in this dungeon. Suddenly, Iluto appeared in front of Mia and Himuro and said that they would be right. This is really the way out of the dungeon. Only the guy admitted that. Unfortunately, he could not let them out of there. Iluto took out his weapon and said that the guys would die here and now. They had no other choice. Himuro was very angry when he saw Iluto. The guy thought that he would have to fight this heretic with swords and magic. Meanwhile, a group of adventurers stood in the room with the spider. Zack started to panic, and he asked how many people they had left. Renee replied that there were only 3 of them, and Misha. The guy said that they couldn't even guess that there would be such monsters in this dungeon. Misha turned to Rina and said that they should run right now and as soon as possible. Renee replied that they would not be able to do it. The passage is already filled with small spiders, so they will have to destroy them all. Zack assumed that in this situation they would have to fight their way through by force. Renee turned to Misha and asked her to stay in place and be safe. The girl did not contradict and agreed with Renee. The adventurers took off and said they could start the battle. All the guys ran in different directions to confuse the spider. Renee began to run around the spider from the side, and she attracted her attention to herself. The girl fired a pair of daggers at the spider. The spider managed to fight back, so he was not injured and continued the battle. At that moment, Moore and Zack swung at the spider, who sharply hit the monster. The whole battle was watched by Renee, who said that they worked so cool together. It was amazing for her. Zack and Moore were able to hit the spider at the same time, but it didn't lead to anything. Zack was upset by this, and the guy said that there was not a single scratch on the spider. Suddenly, the spider swung her paw at the guys and sharply struck near them. This caused the guys to fly off to the sides, and the stones scattered all over the room. Renee was very scared for the guys, but the spider, meanwhile, began to release a web from her belly towards the girl. This was noticed by Misha, who ran to save the girl without hesitation. Misha grabbed the frightened Renee and pushed her aside. Because of this, Misha was hit in the arm. Renee was very surprised that Misha bravely rushed to save the girl. Misha realized that she had fallen into the spider's trap, and now she was in danger. Suddenly, Misha felt that something had happened that helped to free herself from the shackles of the spider. Due to the fact that she was abruptly released, the girl fell to the ground. Alice appeared next to Misha, who saved the girl. Alice turned to Misha and greeted her. The girl said that they had met each other again. Misha was very surprised by the unexpected appearance of the girl. Misha asked that she had come running from the western part of the ruins. Alice looked at the huge monster and said that she knew there was a big monster. And on the way to this room, she killed hundreds of small, similar spiders. Alice, with crazy eyes, said that she thought she needed to clean up this room. The spider took off and attacked the girl, but she managed to jump away and escape. The girl ran around the monster and struck it with a weapon. Alice managed to chop off the monster's paw, which only made him angry. The girl was very happy, and she said she would start with one paw. Alice ran towards the spider again, and the monster stomped sharply with its huge paws. Zack turned to Renee and asked about the fact that Alice was with them at all when they were divided into groups. Renee asked the guy in response if he remembered what she had told him. This is the unit that Himuro summoned. Renee told Zack to stop standing there and help the girl. Zack agreed with the girl. Alice ran towards the spider again, dodging its attack. Then, jumping away from his paw, she stabbed him with a knife. Alice was very surprised when she saw that the monster had not been destroyed. Alice jumped aside and asked in surprise that the attack had no effect on him. The girl realized that she couldn't stand him by mere force, so she had to act differently. At that moment, a weapon flew right by Alice, aimed at the monster. Renee, Moore, and Zack came to Alice's aid. They stood in front of Alice and protected her. Renee swung her arm, which had several daggers in it, and threw all of them at the spider's head. The girl managed to get right into the monster's eyes. Such accuracy of Renee surprised Misha very much. Alice was glad that several more people came to her aid, because she herself no longer knew what to do. After that, Alice jumped off the spot and struck at the monster that came up to her. Alice swung her weapon and cut the monster's head in two. The guys managed to destroy the monsters together. Meanwhile, Himuro and Mia were walking through the corridors and choosing which door they would go through. Suddenly, something caught Mia's attention, and she let Himuro know about it. The girl pointed to a door that was very different from all the others. The girl suggested that this door could lead them to the right place. The guys came to the door, and Himuro said that she was really different from the others. The girl suggested that this might be the way out. Mia and Himuro heard a man appear not far from them and start clapping at them. Himuro immediately turned towards the sound and was very surprised. It was Iluto who told the guys that they had really found a way out, but he couldn't let them in there. The guy pulled out a gun and said they were going to die right there. Iluto told Himuro that he really was able to bypass all the spiders and come to the right exit. The guy admitted that he was amazed by this. Iluto said that Himuro also had an F rank, so he was just lucky to be alive after all this. The guy thought that Himuro would die much faster and would not achieve his goal. Himuro thought about Iluto being so strong. He's ranked B, and besides, the guy doesn't know about his opponent's abilities. So Himuro decided that he needed to be more careful with him. Himuro turned to Mia and made it clear to her that she could step on Iluto. The girl agreed with the guy and replied that he could provide it to her. Iluto noticed the girl and asked her who she was. The guy said he hadn't seen her among the other adventurers. The girl replied that she was a combat maid on Mia's estate. On behalf of Mr. Himuro, she will fight Iluto. The guy replied that he didn't know how she did it, but she caught him off guard. That's why Aluto decided he had no other choice. The guy took up arms and told Mia that he would have to kill her. Himuro's eyes widened, because the guy saw Aluto pounce on Mia and hit her with a blade. Mia managed to deflect the guy's blow and not get hurt. Aluto scoffed at the girl's abilities, but Mia wasn't planning on giving up, so she ran towards the guy. Aluto tried to inflict damage on the girl, but Mia reacted in time and managed to deflect the blows. This surprised Aluto very much, and the guy said that Mia was keeping up with his blade. It wasn't bad for a guy. Aluto asked Mia how she got such a blow. The guy started saying strange things that the girl did not understand at all. After that, Aluto sent a flash of bright light towards Mia, illuminating the entire room. Mia tried to squint her eyes to see through the bright light. The girl realized that this was a special trick in order to blind her. Aluto started attacking the girl again, taking advantage of her vulnerable position. Despite the fact that there was strong glare in the girl's eyes, she was able to dodge the guy's blade. Aluto was surprised to tell the girl that her eyesight had not yet recovered, but she could still dodge his attacks. Aluto began to chant again in a language that the girl did not understand. The guy asked Mia what she thought about the next spell. In the next instant, several arrows were fired towards the girl. Mia managed to dodge the danger again. There were a lot of arrows, but Mia tried to avoid them and not get under them. At some point, one of Aluto's arrows hit the girl's leg directly. When Mia felt this, she began to worry a lot. Aluto told Mia that she can't move so fast anymore. Despite the arrow in her leg, Mia told the guy to give her 3 more minutes, and then she would defeat him. Himuro took a few steps forward, thus slightly covering the injured girl. Himuro told Mia that now it was his turn to fight the enemy, so she can move back to a safe distance. This angered Mia, and the girl said that despite her injury, she could still continue the battle. Himuro replied to the girl that he knew about it, but still he did not agree with her. The guy said that he would also like to fight with such an opponent. Aluto asked the guy again that he really wanted to fight him. It was very interesting for him. The guy asked if he really thought he could beat him with the F rank. Himuro replied that he didn't think so, but just knew it. When the guy watched the fight between Aluto and Mia take place, the guy was only convinced of this. Himuro took up arms and said that if this was indeed his level, then he would definitely be able to defeat him. These words really hurt and angered Aluto, so he called the guy a nasty F rank. Aluto took out his weapon in 1 second and attacked Himuro. The guy managed to stand up and repel the enemy's blow. The guys took turns attacking each other, and they always managed to dodge the weapons. Aluto began to spell again in a language Himuro couldn't understand. Seeing this, Himuro thought that he could see Aluto's lip movements, so he immediately realized that the opponent wanted to blind him. It was the end for him. A moment later, Aluto released bright rays of light into Himuro, which spread throughout the room. Aluto shouted to Himuro that it was over now. Himuro ran up to the opponent and tried to strike at him, but Aluto managed to put his sword in front of him, so he was not injured. Aluto was very surprised that his opponent continued the battle, and he asked Himuro why he was not blind. It was incomprehensible to him. Himuro replied that he had watched her fight with Mia, so by the way Aluto's lips moved, he understood what the guy wanted to do. That's why he managed to close one eye in time and was not blinded. Himuro's sword, which can change its shape depending on the need, bent and tried to reach the guy's face. Himuro was closely following the trajectory of his sword, and the guy was sure that Aluto was caught. Despite this, Himuro's sword did not hit the opponent. This greatly surprised Himuro, and the guy thought that his sword had ricocheted. Suddenly, Aluto struck at Himuro, but he managed to jump aside. Himuro landed on the ground and looked at his opponent. Aluto said it was a curious sword. Because of him, the guy had to use a protective spell. Aluto asked that. In this way, it turns out that the blade and observation are the sources of Himuro's self-confidence. Aluto started to create a magic spell again, and he told Himuro that now he would fight much more seriously than before. Himuro thought Aluto was going to transform the defense into a powerful attacking spell. In that case, Himuro decided that he would release a spell card called Psycho Lacer. It was written on the map that this spell has no element. It deals powerful damage to a target that is immune to magic damage. The time to reapply it is 16 days. Himuro pointed his finger towards Aluto, and a powerful stream of power was directed from him. Aluto hesitated for a second and didn't know how to answer him. A moment later, a powerful explosion occurred near Aluto. Through the smoke, Himuro saw that blood had started dripping on the spot where Aluto was standing. Himuro noticed that part of Aluto's body was destroyed with a cycle laser. In the last minutes of his life, Aluto was very angry that he was destroyed by the F-rank. He couldn't believe it. After these words, the guy fell to the ground dead. Meanwhile, a group of adventurers gathered in the Great Hall, and everyone began to discuss the latest news from the dungeon. Someone was very surprised by the fact that the spider was completely destroyed. The guy was sitting on the floor exhausted, and he said that this spider had been chasing them for a long time. In addition, she released a lot of nasty little spiders. The guy confessed that he was the only one left alive, and the rest were killed by spiders. Renee was very shocked by this news, and the girl said that she could not believe that so many people were dead. The guy turned to Ark and asked what the remaining fighters might need to start acting. If they don't work together all together, then the giant spiders will also kill them, as well as the rest of the adventurers. Ark replied to the guy that yes, he was right about that. Suddenly, a girl ran out to the guys and shouted that they had a problem. Mora said that the condition of the egg had become somewhat strange. His pulsation increased, and the shell began to become transparent. The guys assumed that the dungeon monster that is in this egg is about to be born. The adventurers have very little time left, and only 10 people will be able to escape from the dungeon. In addition, there are 3 more traitors left among the entire group who must be found. The adventurers approached the egg and noticed that the monster would really start hatching very soon. The guys said that everything was going very badly for them. Someone said that they needed to get out of there as soon as possible. He was told that they had not yet found a way out, so no one knew where to go. In addition, there are still huge spiders in the dungeon that threaten them. Ark said he thought they didn't have much time left before trouble. The guy asked the team if they remember what Basel had said. For the final hatching of the monster, it is necessary that they all die. Ark added that there are 24 adventurers there. Besides, that group of singles is probably alive too. Initially, there were 100 of them. It is logical to assume that the number of victims should be about the same. The adventurers began to panic due to the fact that there is a high probability that the egg will hatch after all. In this case, no one knows what to do. Misha turned to the guys and asked the group not to worry about it. After all, even if the monster hatches, Himuro will somehow be able to defeat it. The girl was sure of it. Mora turned to the guys and asked that the monster's shell had become more transparent. The girl suggested that her spells might work on him. The adventurer asked the girl that she could kill it before it hatched. The girl replied that, yes, she thinks she should try it. She asked everyone to stand behind her so that no one would get hurt. The girl tuned in and told the noble spirit of fire to give her strength. The girl spoke the words, Asak, Rufalt, Esrael, Lawful, Gilda, Regwell. Suddenly, the girl turned to the group of adventurers and said that now they were all going to die. The girl directed her power directly into the cluster of adventurers. Renee realized that this girl was one of the traitors. A powerful explosion occurred at the place of the adventurers. Some guys tried to hold on so they wouldn't be blown away by the shockwave. A huge hole was formed at the site of Murata's impact. Misha looked at Mora with horror in her eyes, who sarcastically said that she had killed so many people, and she was so embarrassed for it. Ark was very surprised by the girl's action, and he asked Mora what she was doing. Mora asked the adventurers what they still hadn't figured out. She is a traitor. The girl thanked the guys for standing so comfortably in a bunch. Although some managed to survive, she still killed most of the adventurers. A group of guys got very angry at the girl, and they ran to destroy her. Instead, the guys received fatal wounds from another traitor. Everyone was horrified that the traitors began to impersonate one after another. Ark turned to Grive and said that he was also a traitor. Grab sarcastically apologized to the guy and said that he was also a follower of Carius. The traitor said they had only 5 people left to destroy. One of them was F rank, so they can say that there are only 4 adventurers left. Moore and Zack saw that the traitors were running right at them. Grab struck at the guys, but they both managed to bounce in different directions, so they were not hurt. At the last moment, Moore turned back and saw that Mora was aiming at him with her magic. Moore did not have time to run to safety, so the girl hit Moore exactly. He fell to the ground dead. Zack was very scared for his friend, and he didn't know what to do now. Mora apologized to the guys for hiding that they actually had his Sea Crank's power. At that moment, Grab appeared behind the shocked Zack, who swung his weapon at him. The guys fought with swords, but Zack's weapon was weaker, so it quickly broke. At the last moment, Zack, who was being targeted by Grabe, was saved by Ark, holding his sword in front of him. The guy stepped aside and Ark asked Zack if he was okay. Zack replied that yes, he was fine, and he was grateful for the care. The adventurers heard the voice of Ood, who said that he had seen an interesting turn of events. The guy turned to Mora and Gribe and asked that they were traitors. Odd told the guys that it was because of them that they were involved in such events, and they still do whatever they want. Ood said it was an abomination to him. He told Tatos to have the guy destroy them. Tatos replied positively. Ark stood by the Uwad and warned that they were too strong, but together they could defeat them. Suddenly, Yudi stuck his blade into Ark's neck and asked the guy to rely on him. The adventurers were shocked that these guys were traitors too. Yud pulled his blade out of the guy's neck, and he fell dead to the ground. The guy turned to Yud and asked that he too had been a traitor all this time. Yud replied that no, he had not guessed right. The traitor was actually Tatos. Ud said that after they missed each other, Tatos offered him to make a deal. He wanted Yud to kill all the adventurers, and in return he would receive a round sum of money, as well as a way out. The guy got angry, and he asked Uda to stop making fun of him. The guy wanted to fight Ood, but Ood told the adventurer that he was moving too slowly. The Ood abruptly struck the guy's body, which led to his death. The traitors turned to the remaining adventurers and said that now they were the only ones left. Renee and Misha looked at the traitors with fear and incomprehension. At this moment, Himuro appears in the ashes, who has chosen a spell card. It was a huge crystal magic spear that Himuro aimed at the traitors. The spear was able to cut the guys' bodies in half. The girls saw Himuro appear through a gap in the wall, and they were glad to see him.